The real estate industry was too deep and involved too many people's interests, so Zhou Hao wasn't willing to get involved. Furthermore, with the assets he currently possessed, not to mention the current Green Osmanthus Corporation, even if the Hong Kong Joint Trading Company went public in the future, the Green Osmanthus Corporation, whose market value rose to 60 to 70 billion renminbi, could not compare to it. After the funds were collected from Indonesia, in addition to the Heavenly River Drink Group and North Pole Star Media Group, Zhou Hao's net worth had already reached more than 17 billion US dollars. If it were in RMB, it would be 150 billion. Besides, except for a few people, the outside world did not know about the existence of an invisible tycoon like Zhou Hao. Therefore, Zhou Hao could only laugh at the fact that Yang Guoqiang had used tens of millions of years of salary to recruit him. He said to Yang Guoqiang, "Mr. Yang, thank you for your appreciation, but I'm not experienced enough to be in such a high position. Also, for personal reasons, I don't want to leave Poly Group, so I can only accept your good intentions, Mr. Yang." Zhou Hao's refusal disappointed Yang Guoqiang. After all, it was very difficult to meet such a talent. Most importantly, Zhou Hao was not someone he could use. In the future, Jade Osmanthus Garden Corporation would definitely not be able to avoid becoming a competitor for the Poly Group. At that time, Zhou Hao would be a powerful opponent that could make Yang Guoqiang anxious. What a pity, but everyone has their own ambitions. Since little brother insists on staying at the Poly Group, then I won't force you. Yang Guoqiang smiled and said, "However, if you change your mind in the future, our company's doors will always be open for you." Zhou Hao smiled and nodded. Yang Guoqiang was indeed generous. It was not unreasonable for him to have such achievements. Yang Huiyin, who was sitting beside Yang Guoqiang, was stunned. First of all, it was because of Zhou Hao's extraordinary vision and talent. Second, it was because of how much importance Yang Guoqiang attached to Zhou Hao. She had never seen her father favor a person so much. One should know that the most important management staff in the company was only paid 1 million a year. Especially since Zhou Hao was so young, he was not much older than her. Since the direction of the big company had been determined, Kong Fuqiao and Yang Guoqiang discussed the details in detail and exchanged their understanding of Hangdao real estate and shared a lot of information. It was not until close to evening that the two parties finally came to an initial agreement on the details of the cooperation. After that, Yang Guoqiang also warmly invited Kong Fuqiao and Zhou Hao to have dinner before leaving. Zhou Hao and the others did not decline. During the meal, Kong Fuqiao smiled at Yang Guoqiang. "Brother Yang, I see that you are already grooming your daughter. Prepare to let her take over your class." Kong Fuqiao could naturally tell that if it was not for the sake of grooming Yang Huiyin, why would Yang Guoqiang let her attend such an occasion? This girl still has a long way to go if she wants to take over the shift. Yang Guoqiang laughed and said, "If she has half of little brother Zhou's ability, then I can be at ease even if I hand the company over to her now." Yang Huiyin said unhappily, "Dad, am I that useless?" Although she had already witnessed Zhou Hao's abilities, she was also very impressed by him. However, she had always been a strong-willed person, so she couldn't accept the fact that Yang Guoqiang had scolded her in front of others. On the other hand, Zhou Hao didn't have any special feelings towards Yang Huiyin. Just like what the outside world had said, the most important reason why Yang Huiyin could become the richest woman in the country was because she had a capable father. After taking over the company, there were also a large number of excellent management talents that helped him maintain the company's development and operations. As for her own ability, in Zhou Hao's opinion, it was just to be expected. Old brother Yang, if you want to recruit Zhou Hao into your company, there is actually another way." Kong Fuqiao suddenly laughed. Yang Guoqiang was really interested in this matter. When he heard this, he immediately asked, "What is it?" "Brother Kong, tell me quickly." Kong Fuqiao looked at Yang Huiyin opposite him and smiled. "As long as you let Zhou Hao become your son-in-law, won't you let him enter your company?" Hearing Kong Fuqiao's words, Yang Guoqiang's eyes lit up and said in his heart, "That's right, if Zhou Hao and Huiyin." Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Zhou Hao again. He felt that Zhou Hao was tall, slender, and handsome. He really looked like a genius. In addition, he was a talented man. He was indeed a typical son-in-law. Zhou Hao and Yang Huiyin were also stunned by Kong Fuqiao's words. To be honest, Zhou Hao really didn't have any special feelings towards this future female richest man. Putting aside the fact that Yang Huiyin's appearance was only considered average compared to Zhao Yuqing's and Yin Qingqing's group of girls, the key was that Zhou Hao did not call her at all. Although Yang Huiyin also felt that Zhou Hao was much better than the boys she knew, this was only the first time they had met. How could she like or not like Zhou Hao, let alone marry him? Seeing Yang Guoqiang's serious consideration, Zhou Hao was afraid that he would really have such thoughts, so he hurriedly smiled and said, Mr. Kong, you must be joking. I am just a small employee. How can I be worthy of Miss Yang? Besides, to be honest, I already have a fiancé. In the end, he added in his heart, there's more than one. Whether it was Zhao Yuqin, Li Rulin, Yin Qingqing, Su Lin, Situ Jianying, Yang Jiabao, Liang Xiaobing, Li Shuihan and the other women who already had a husband and wife with him, or Wang Shijuan, Gao Jingyi and Yang Jiabao, these beautiful women who were close to his heart. Zhou Hao had long regarded her as his wife. So saying that he had a fiancé was not a lie. When Yang Guoqiang heard that Zhou Hao already had a fiancé, he let out a long sigh of regret. It seemed that Zhou Hao really had no fate with him. Kong Fuqiao was also shocked when he heard Zhou Hao's words. He thought to himself, D*MN. This joke is too much. He had previously speculated that Zhou Hao must be a disciple of some big family. The marriage of a big family like this was usually decided a long time ago. Moreover, the target of the marriage was either a powerful family or a wealthy family. This was to achieve the goal of a strong alliance. If Zhou Hao bore a grudge against him because of that joke just now, then it would be troublesome. Fortunately, Zhou Hao still had that warm smile on his face, which made Kong Fuqiao heave a sigh of relief. After Kong Fuqiao left with Zhou Hao and the others, Yang Huiyin started to complain to her father. Dad, did you really want that Zhou Hao to be your son-in-law just now? If that's the case, you can go and find eldest sister or youngest sister. I won't keep you company. Aya, my precious daughter. Yang Guoqiang smiled bitterly at Yang Huiyin. Dad is also thinking of you. Not to mention Zhou Hao being able to work in a place like the Poly Group, his background is definitely not simple. Even if he is really just an ordinary person, with his talent, he is definitely not someone to be trifled with. Moreover, you have also seen that he is so handsome and tall and fierce. It can be said that he is beautiful and intelligent at the same time. Don't you like boys with such good conditions? Yang Huiyin curled her lips. Didn't you hear him say that he has a fiancé? Furthermore, he clearly doesn't take me seriously. Why would I join in the fun? Humph. A three-legged dog is hard to find. There are so few men with 2 legs. I don't believe that no other man is better than that self-righteous guy. This daughter is a stubborn person, even if she's my dad. Therefore, Yang Guoqiang could only shake his head and smile bitterly, giving up on this idea. In the next few days, Zhou Hao followed Kong Fuqiao to see other powerful real estate companies, including Wank, Rich, Greenland, and Distinguished Property. The process was also very smooth. The elites in the real estate industry knew what kind of threat the Tim Aston would pose to their territory. They also knew that if they fought alone, they would not be a match for the Tim Aston. Now, with the Big Brother Poly Group leading the counterattack, they naturally responded. The development after that was similar to what Zhou Hao had expected. With the Poly Group as the lead, Emerald Osmanthus Garden, Wank, and Fuli Company attacked separately, snatching the land that Hengda Real Estate originally intended to buy. At the same time, they used their influence in various fields to launch a comprehensive attack on Hengda Real Estate. For example, the few most powerful television stations in Guangdong all had a mutual understanding and reported that the houses in Hengda Real Estate had all kinds of quality problems and potential safety risks. There was also a group of people who came out of nowhere, claiming to be the owners of the housing estates under Hengda Real Estate. They jointly sued Hengda Real Estate to the court, accusing it of violating the rules of the original transaction contract and not providing property certificates to the owners. At the same time, Hengda Real Estate's original loan bank suddenly stopped working with Hengda Real Estate and no longer provided loans for them. It also exposed that Hengda Real Estate's integrity was not good and often owed debts. For a moment, Hengda Real Estate's reputation plummeted, causing it to lose a large number of customers. Furthermore, the various real estate developers ostracized them, making it difficult for their development to progress. Finally, the Poly Group launched the most fatal blow to them. They colluded with government officials to buy land at a low price, as well as the mafia to persecute the evictors. With Yao Shugao as a witness, what the real estate developers usually did became the most fatal weakness of Hengda Real Estate. Under the immense pressure of the public, the Provincial Public Security Department and the Provincial Discipline Committee worked together to arrest and investigate the general manager of Hengda Real Estate and a group of high-ranking officials, as well as Bureau Chieftain's officials who had received bribes. Hengda Real Estate had also become a major case that shocked the entire Guangdong and even the entire country. The attention it attracted had also caused the government to punish Hengda Real Estate. Regarding the matter of Hengda Real Estate, the provincial government had no choice but to do so. After all, it was Tim Aston who supported Hengda Real Estate behind the scenes. The provincial government was clear about this matter. Many officials with high positions were also cooperating with Tim Aston. Removing Hungda real estate was not only removing the most important nail in Tim Aston's real estate industry in the southern region, but also cutting off an important source of income for these officials. However, even if they wanted to cut off their heart and flesh this time, they had no choice but to grit their teeth and cut it off. When Ling Jiqing handed Yao Shugao over to the Provincial Public Security Department and asked them to properly handle the matter of Hungda real estate colluding with the gangs to carry out illegal demolition, the people from the Public Security Department took the risk to suppress this matter, because they were part of the Tim Aston's interest group. However, just as they wanted to let Yao Shugao die in an accident in the detention center, and no one could testify against him, the Poly Group intervened again and directly went to the Provincial Disciplinary Committee to deal with the violators who colluded with Hungda real estate. Now, they had to reconsider how to deal with Hungda real estate. They might be able to deal with the Ministry of National Security. After all, Ling Jiqing and the rest were only at the provincial subbureau, and the National Security headquarters at the center did not issue official documents. Therefore, although Ling Jiqing's side was more difficult to deal with, as long as they solved Yao Shugao, the key factor, they could barely protect Hungda real estate. But compared to Ling Jiqing and the rest, the Poly Group could not be provoked. Because the big shots behind the Poly Group, even the Provincial Party Committee and the provincial government did not dare to offend them, let alone them, who were ranked higher than them. Therefore, under the double pressure of the Poly Group and the Ministry of National Security, after weighing the pros and cons, the people in the province could only make a move on Hungda real estate. In order to avoid unnecessary complications, they even directly attacked and tried to put Hungda Real Estate Corporation to death. Bureau Chief Shin, the Real Estate Bureau, the Ministry of Engineering, and other related officials also became the scapegoat for the flag sacrifice. All of them lost their horses and were treated as a typical example. Although the big bosses behind the Poly Group also knew that there were people in the province who were partners with Tim Aston, those people were not low-level after all. Even if they fought, they would inevitably suffer a lot of losses. So after dealing with Bureau Chief Shin and the other scapegoat lambs as well as removing the nail of the Tim Aston, the Hungda real estate, they also stopped digging. After all, it was a taboo in the official circles to kill all of them. Under permitted circumstances, no one would do anything to the extreme. Of course, Zhou Hao, who was not part of the system, did not care about this huge taboo at all. After borrowing the power of the Pausing Group and the Ministry of National Security to get rid of Hungda real estate, the people of Hungda real estate did not know of his existence. They only thought that the Baoli Group, Yang Guoqiang, and other local real estate developers were working together to deal with him, but they didn't know that the one who brought him to such a state was just a mere relocation city. In a room of a luxury club in Zhuhai, the deputy general manager of Hungda Real Estate, Bao Zhengqiao, who had been bailed out, kneeled down in front of a man in his 30s. He said with cold sweat all over his head, "Second young master, I'm sorry, we messed up the matter. You also know that you messed up the matter?" The man in front of him sat on the sofa, raised his leg and kicked Bao Zhengqiao, instantly kicking him to the ground. He said, "Do you know that it was because of you idiots that we lost the opportunity to enter the southern part of China's property industry? How much money did we lose? Do you King know?" This furious man was a member of the Singapore Li clan, Li Guangyao's second son, Li Xianyang. The person in charge of developing the real estate market in southern China was Li Xianyang. He originally wanted to use this opportunity to show his talent to Li Guangyao, but he didn't expect it to be a failure. Not only did the huge investment in the beginning go to waste, but it would also be extremely difficult to find a chance to get a hold of the place where strong men gathered in the south. When he thought of this, Li Xianyang could not calm down. He furiously beat up Bao Zhengqiao. "Second brother, forget it. This matter can't all be blamed on them." A young but steady voice came from behind. It was clear that the figure paused and reluctantly let Bao Zhengqiao go. He turned around and complained to the handsome young man, "Third brother, you don't know how difficult it is for second brother. Father originally didn't think highly of me, but now this matter has been messed up again. It will be even more difficult for me to raise my head in front of father in the future." Didn't Li Guangyao only have 2 sons? Why did Li Xianyang call that man third brother? The man poured 2 glasses of wine and passed one of them to Li Xianyang. He also sat on the sofa beside him. He said, "Things have developed to this point. Even if father personally came out, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to do anything. If Zhou Hao was here, he would definitely be shocked to the point of being dumbfounded. Because this third brother of Li Xianyang was none other than the young master of the Qing gang, Gu Changfeng. Bao Zhengqiao, who had been beaten up by Li Xianyang until he was covered in wounds, couldn't care less about the pain anymore. He hurriedly greeted him respectfully, "Third young master, get up. Gu Changfeng looked at him. Although I have temporarily saved you, the government of China will not let you go like this, right? You, Zhang Ning, and the rest will probably be sentenced to at least 10 years in prison this time. I can only wait for this matter to pass, then I'll find an opportunity to use the opportunity to save you and get you out. The Zhang Ning he spoke of was the general manager of Hengda Real Estate, because he was the main culprit. Hence, the government did not allow Zhang Ning to be released on bail. Li Xianying asked Gu Changfeng, third brother, is there really no way to redeem this matter? Gu Changfeng did not look at him. Instead, he looked down at the sparkling wine in his hand and said, didn't you see the attitude of those people from the provincial government? If there was still room for negotiation, they would not be so ruthless. Those ungrateful guys, how much money do we give them every year? They actually treat us like this. This is something that can't be helped. If it was me, I would have done the same thing as them. Gu Changfeng smiled and said, not to mention the Ministry of National Security, behind the Poly Group is China's military. They have always been famous for being tough. Not to mention those people from the provincial government, even the central government would not do anything to them. Speaking of this, Li Xianying knew that he could only give up, but he still said indignantly, how unlucky. I didn't think that the Poly Group would make such a big move against us. Lu, do you really think that this matter was all done by those people from the Poly Group? Gu Changfeng smiled. When Li Xianying heard this, he was stunned. Huh, could it not be? Didn't the Pausing Group deal with us because they were afraid that we would compete with them in the real estate market? Gu Changfeng shook his head. That's only one of the reasons. It's true that the Poly Group does not wish for anyone to encroach on their territory. But why didn't they do anything when we first set up the place? Why did they attack us at this time? Lu, do you remember how the matter started? Li Xianying said, it started when Yao Shugao, that useless fellow, was captured by the National Security Department. I wonder what kind of disaster he caused. He actually provoked the National Security Department and even implicated us. Then why was Yao Shugao captured by the National Security Department? Do you know why? It wasn't his own fault? Li Xianying was puzzled. Gu Changfeng said, to be precise, this started when Hengda Real Estate did not follow the rules and harmed the interests of the Tongguang Food Company. Yao Shugao was captured by the Ministry of National Security because he sent people to destroy the branch of Tongguang. Third brother, you're saying that the reason why Hengda Real Estate fell to this state is because of this Tongguang company? Who are they? Li Xianying said in surprise. Gu Changfeng sighed slightly. It's my fault that I didn't warn you at the beginning, but we were unlucky. Hengda Real Estate actually had a conflict with the Tongguang company. Lu, actually, this Tongguang company is owned by Zhou Hao's family. Zhou Hao? Which Zhou Hao? Before Li Xianying could react, he exclaimed, You mean that Zhou Hao? The Zhou Hao that my father mentioned to us? Gu Changfeng nodded with a bitter smile. I'm afraid that he was the one who led the matter of Hengda Real Estate. He borrowed the blades of the Poly Group and the Ministry of National Security to get rid of Hengda Real Estate. Seeing Li Xianying's gloomy face due to anger, Gu Changfeng patted him on the shoulder. Lu, forget it. Father also said that we must not provoke Zhou Hao at this stage. You don't have to worry about being blamed by your father when you go back. If he knew that the cause of this matter was Zhou Hao, he wouldn't blame you. Li Xianying nodded his head. Besides admitting that he was unlucky, he really had no other choice. However, he still said to Gu Changfeng indignantly, Third brother, are we really going to hide under this Zhou Hao's coercion? Master is seriously injured now. I'm afraid he won't be able to fully recover in less than half a year. Furthermore, AI. He stood up and walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window. Looking down at the scenery of the entire city below, a bright light suddenly erupted from his eyes, as if he was standing at the peak looking down at the world. He said, sooner or later, I will make Zhou Hao pay back all the debts that he owes us. After saying that, he suddenly raised his head and drank the cup of mellow wine in his hand. There were no accidents in the development of the matter. More than a dozen higher-ups of Hengda Real Estate were sentenced to death, and they had completely lost the ability to establish themselves in the southern region. They could only quietly withdraw from the real estate market and disappear without a trace. As the victims of Hengda Real Estate's crisis in the official circles, the heads of several bureaus in the Yuxiu district were replaced. The contract between Tongguang Food Company and Hengda Real Estate, which had been tampered with, was naturally abolished. Hengda Real Estate still had to compensate Tongguang with 1 million yuan of economic losses. Under Zhou Hao's guidance, the Tongguang did not only pull strings with the Trade and Commerce Bureau in Yuxiu district. Instead, they directly went to establish a relationship with the district secretary and the district mayor. From this incident, the Tongguang had learned their lesson. Yin Tong and Lu Shiping were not keen to build a good relationship with the government in the past. Moreover, no one dared to offend them in Xiang City, which caused them to relax in other places. After this incident, even though they felt a little disgusted, Yin Tong and Lu Shiping still arranged for people in the company to communicate with the government. If there was an emergency, they would not be flustered. After that, in order to better control the company and develop the domestic market, Yin Tong and Lu Shiping decided to let Yin Qingqing bring a group of company staff members to various branches in the country for inspection and planning. At the same time, they would pay attention to the cities in the Tongguang that had yet to set foot in and had potential for development, and prepare for opening branches there in the future. He knew that so far, Mrs. Zhou's restaurant and Romance's cake shop had more than 50 branches all over the country. Beijing, Tianjin, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, as well as the provincial cities, had all been deployed. With delicious food, clean and unique environment, and cheap prices, Mrs. Zhou's restaurant was very popular everywhere. The romantic cake shop, which kept pushing out new products to lead the trend of the art cake, was greatly sought after by the younger generation. Because of the local culture, the Mrs. Zhou's restaurant outside of Guangdong province did not use Hong Kong food as a selling point. Instead, it mainly sold various types of food to adapt to the dietary culture of different regions. Every once in a while, it would take turns to introduce representative snacks from other places to provide fresh taste for the local consumers. As the Tongguang Food Company blossomed all over the country, Zhou Hao also suggested Yin Tong and the others to try to expand the Tongguang's market by joining. It could reduce the cost and also save manpower, which could be used as a small leverage. Yin Qingqing was able to familiarize herself with the basic operations of the Tongguang and prepare for taking over the management of the Tongguang in the future. She was also able to see the culture of the various places and increase her knowledge. Zhou Hao had also specially sent a few elites from Pluto to ensure Yin Qingqing's safety while she was away. After Yin Qingqing's business trip, Zhao Yuqin was not in a hurry to return to Beijing. Instead, she stayed in Guangzhou to spend a romantic and intimate time with Zhou Hao. "Xiao Hao, you can't come again. If you come again, it will cause Big Sister's death." At this moment, Zhao Yuqin was lying naked on the bed. She hugged Zhou Hao tightly and said while gasping for breath. Zhou Hao pushed away the hair on her forehead that was soaked in sweat and kissed the corner of her mouth again. He smiled and said, "Sister, why did you surrender so quickly today? Who can come here every day like you? You don't know how to cherish your sister." Zhao Yuqin took a bite on Zhou Hao's face. Zhou Hao smiled as he took advantage of Zhao Yuqin's voluptuous and alluring body. "Although you are so charming, Xiao Hao can't help it. Hee sister, you are Xiao Hao's darling. Xiao Hao doesn't want to leave your side for even a second." As he spoke, he pushed his face into Zhao Yuqin's chest and kept rubbing it, causing Zhao Yuqin to pout. "You are a bad guy. You are really Big Sister's little devil star. Don't be naughty for now. Big Sister has something serious to ask you." "What is it? What is more serious than what we are doing now?" Zhou Hao said with a mischievous smile. Zhao Yuqin held Zhou Hao's head and did not let him move again. She asked seriously, "Let me ask you, why did you transfer 35% of Tianhe's shares to me? Did Sister manage Tianhe for money? If you don't explain it clearly, Sister will be really angry." What do I mean by that?" Zhou Hao smiled and said, "It's just that, Sister. You have helped me so much. I can't let you do it for free. Even if you don't care about me, my godfather won't let me go. Besides, didn't you transfer all the shares of Galaxy Investment to me? Did you think that I was doing this for money? Also, aren't the bosses of many large enterprises transferring part of the company's shares to their wives?" Zhou Hao's last sentence had truly touched Zhao Yuqin's heart. The doubts and uneasiness in her heart were swept away. She kept kissing Zhou Hao's face and said sweetly, "Little bad guy. You are really a sweet little bad guy who won't pay with your life." Maintaining this kind of intimate position, Zhao Yuqin suddenly said to Zhou Hao, "Xiao Hao, the raising the yin fong that you gave elder sister does not want to eat it anymore." Zhou Hao was stunned and quickly asked, "What's wrong, sister? Is there any side effects from the yin cultivating pill?" This yin cultivating pill was actually the prescription that Zhou Hao got from the Shinnong's herbal classic that could both prevent pregnancy and nourish the body. With this prescription, Zhou Hao could be so unscrupulous as to go against all the women. Zhao Yuqin shook her head and 2 red clouds appeared on her face. She said softly, "There are no side effects. It is because Sister wants to give birth to a child for you." At the end of her words, she, who was usually generous and capable, turned her face away and did not dare to look at Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao was stunned by Zhao Yuqin's words. His heart was in chaos. He knew that almost all women wished to give birth to children for the man they loved. This was their natural maternal nature, and also their love for their man. Zhou Hao was naturally very happy that a mature, beautiful, strong, and capable beauty like Zhao Yuqin was willing to have children for him. However, whether it was from Zhao Yuqin's perspective or Zhou Hao's, at this stage, it was not a good time to have a child. The Zhao family still did not know the true relationship between Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin. They had always thought that they were siblings who loved each other. Zhou Hao could not guarantee that old Master Zhao and the others would have any reaction after his relationship with Zhao Yuqin was exposed. If it was an ordinary family, Zhou Hao would not have so many concerns. But who was old Master Zhao? He was the third most important person in the country. He was a person who could shake the entire country with a flip of his hand and a stamp of his foot. Besides, even if old Master Zhao was just an ordinary person, he would probably be sad because of this. This was something that Zhou Hao did not want to see. Zhou Hao wasn't without worries either. After all, he was still young. Furthermore, if Zhao Yuqin really got pregnant, the first person who would not let him go would definitely not be old Master Zhao, but Yin Tong. Also, if other women knew about it, they did not know if they would let their imagination run wild. Seeing that Zhou Hao was silent and had a frown on his face, Zhao Yuqin said sadly, "Older sister also knows that this idea is unrealistic. But sister really wants to give birth to a child for Xiao Hao. Whether it is a son or daughter, sister will have no regrets in this life." She pressed her face against Zhou Hao's chest and listened to his strong heartbeat. She said with some resentment, "Elder sister is already 25 or 26 years old this year, but you are only 17. When you are 20, elder sister will be almost 3 years old. Elder sister does not want to be an old woman. Moreover, when that time comes, sister will be old and yellow. I don't know if you are willing to have children with elder sister, you little playboy." "How could that be? I think big sister, even if you're 50 years old, you'll still be like this. The word old and yellow will not appear on you for at least 30 to 40 years. Zhou Hao hurriedly said with a smile. Indeed, with Zhou Hao's nourishment, Zhao Yuqin became even younger than before. If not for her curvy figure and the mature and experienced temperament on her body, just by looking at her snow-white skin, everyone would probably think that she was still in her prime. Also, I don't dare to say anything else. But the eldest son and grandson of our old Zhou's family will definitely need you to help me give birth." Zhou Hao hugged Zhao Yuqin and said. When Zhao Yuqin heard this, her face also turned red. The so-called eldest son and grandson, other than expressing their first son, also had another meaning, which was the son and heir of the main wife. If this meaning was placed in modern times, it might not have any meaning. But according to Zhou Hao's current situation, even if he could not have a main wife and a concubine servant, he still had to have a big sister to stabilize the back. Hearing Zhou Hao's words, the position of big sister was obviously for Zhao Yuqin to sit. Although she had always been tolerant of Zhou Hao's dissolute attitude and even took the initiative to befriend the other girls, it did not mean that Zhao Yuqin did not have any jealousy in her heart. Now that Zhou Hao had confirmed her position as the head of the harem, it at least made Zhao Yuqin less worried. She hooked her arm around Zhou Hao's neck and said gently, "I can let you go for now. However, you must give your sister a child before she turns 30. Otherwise, I won't care about that. At most, I'll hide in a foreign country for a year or two. When I carry my child back, it'll be too late for Dad and the others to stop me." Zhou Hao was stunned. He smiled bitterly in his heart. This sister of his was really strong. Zhou Hao started to take Zhao Yuqin's question seriously, even though his current physical age was not suitable for giving birth to children. But the women around him, whether it was their age or their environment, had already reached the best age to give birth. For example, Zhao Yuqin, Li Rulin, Su Lin, and Liang Xiaobing. Even He Shuiyun, who had left him after a night of spring breeze, was currently at the best time to give birth to a child. Other than He Shuiyun, who could not be sure of her feelings, the other women all deeply loved Zhou Hao. Now, they were more or less thinking of giving birth to a child for Zhou Hao. When he thought of this, Zhou Hao could not help but feel a little worried. Zhao Yuqin had also told him beforehand that Li Rulin also liked children very much. But she was still a teacher in Yining Middle School, and she was also his teacher and student. It was because of this that she didn't dare let Zhou Hao shoot into her body back then. So, in a situation where she had to worry about something, Li Rulin shouldn't have any thoughts for the time being. Liang Xiaobing, on the other hand, was an artiste and was currently at the peak of her career. If she really decided to have a child, it basically meant that she was going to retire. So there was not much of a problem. The only one left was Su Lin. Her ability was not inferior to Zhao Yuqin at all. Compared to the Heavenly River Drink Group, Asia television station's funds and scale were not as good as theirs. However, the things that needed to be dealt with in the company, as well as their complicated interpersonal relationships, required much more effort than the management of the Heavenly River Drink Group. Especially with Zhao Yuqin's prominent identity, basically no one dared to provoke her. Below, there was also Jukin Sutako, a person who could take charge and support her. Hence, Su Lin was able to manage Asia television station to become a place for her. This kind of result was not easy to achieve, and it could also be seen how powerful she was. She was simply another Fang Yihua. With such a strong ability, one's character was usually very strong and independent. Especially when it came to matters that he had decided on, he would persist until the end. He might even be a little paranoid. If Su Lin wanted to give birth to Zhou Hao, it would not be easy for her to give up on this idea. What Zhou Hao was most afraid of now was that when he was with Su Lin in Hong Kong, Su Lin hid from him and did not take the in recuperation. If that was the case, it would be troublesome, especially since Zhou Hao could not really be angry with her. Sigh, looks like I have to find some time to communicate with Su Lin about this matter. Zhou Hao muttered to himself. He was thinking about what if one day Su Lin came to Yin Tong with a child in her arms and said, "Auntie, this is Zhou Hao's child." This kind of scene was really too shocking. However, Su Lin would not be such a person. This kind of situation would only be Zhou Hao entertaining himself and letting his imagination run wild. "What are you muttering about?" Zhao Yuqin, who was beside him, saw Zhou Hao muttering to himself and could not help but ask. Zhou Hao came back to his senses and smiled. "It's nothing. I was just thinking that although I can't give you a child right now, elder sister, I can't give you a child. But we can still rehearse in advance so that we can prepare for the future." "Rehearse? How do we rehearse?" Zhao Yuqin was stunned. She looked at the corner of Zhou Hao's mouth and immediately had a bad feeling. As expected, Zhou Hao turned over again and pressed Zhao Yuqin down. He smiled and said, "How can we rehearse? We are not like that." Zhao Yuqin had already realized what Zhou Hao meant by rehearse. She quickly begged for mercy. "No, no, no. Little bad guy, spare sister. Sister really can't do it anymore. Why don't we go back to Xiang City and find Ruolin? Don't torment Big Sister anymore. Big Sister can't take it anymore and continue to torment you." Hee, Big Sister. It's already too late to beg for mercy now, Zhou Hao said proudly. Just as Zhou Hao was about to attack Zhao Yuqin again, the phone on the bedside table rang at an inappropriate time. Zhao Yuqin immediately borrowed the phone and said, "Xiao Hao, the phone is here. Hurry up and pick it up. There might be something important." After saying that, she did not care about Zhou Hao's objection and took the phone over to Zhou Hao's ear. Helpless, Zhou Hao could only answer the phone, but in his heart, he was regretting. "If I had known earlier, I would have turned this D*MN phone off. Hello, who is it? I am Zhou Hao." Due to his unsatisfied desire, Zhou Hao's voice sounded like it was filled with gunpowder. Zhou Hao, it's me, Kung Fu Chiao. I am not disturbing you from your business, am I?" Kung Fu Chiao, who was on the other side of the phone, was shocked by Zhou Hao's tone. He wondered if his call had offended Zhou Hao. Hearing that it was Kung Fu Chiao, Zhou Hao did not want to vent his anger on him. Kung Fu Chiao had always been gentle and polite when he was with Zhou Hao, and he answered all his questions as much as possible, which benefited Zhou Hao a lot. "Oh, hee, so it's Brother Kong. Hee, I'm sorry, I have something to do. Is there anything I can help you with?" After saying that, Zhou Hao deliberately pinched the pair of large white rabbits on Zhao Yuqin's chest. Stop messing with little scoundrel." Zhao Yuqin cried out and immediately covered her mouth, afraid that Kung Fu Chiao on the other side of the phone would hear her. Even though Zhao Yuqin's voice was not loud, Kung Fu Chiao on the other side still heard her and his heart skipped a beat. He was considered a romantic figure. He naturally knew that the reason why the man's tone was unfriendly when he answered the phone was mostly because his proper business was disturbed. He also recognized Zhao Yuqin's voice. From this, Kung Fu Chiao had to guess. Zhou Hao and Miss Zhao were not. Could it be? Putting aside whether his guess was true or not, even if his guess was correct, Kung Fu Chiao did not dare to say it out loud. He had been in the Poly Group for many years. He knew very well what he could listen to, what he could not listen to, and what he could not say. So he pretended not to hear it and said as if nothing had happened, "Zhou Hao, it's like this. There is a gentleman on the board of directors of our company who wants to see you. So I want to ask if you have time these few days." "Oh, who is it?" Zhou Hao was puzzled. He knew that the board of directors of the Poly Group was not a simple person. Most of them had the same status as Zhao Dingzhou and were even more prominent. Kung Fu Chiao smiled and said, "Haha, because that Mister's identity is sensitive, and he told me not to tell you his identity before meeting you. I'm sorry, Zhou Hao. I'm just a pawn in the company. I dare not disobey the orders of those big bosses up there. Zhou Hao pondered for a moment and said, I'm quite free these few days. Brother Kong, when does that person want to see me? I am not sure yet. After all, that person is very busy with work, but it should be within these 2 days. I will inform you when the time comes. Kong Fuqiao said. Okay, thank you, Brother Kong. After hanging up the phone, Zhao Yuqin heard some clues and asked, Who exactly wants to see you? Zhou Hao shrugged. I don't know either. Kong Fuqiao said that the identity of that person must be kept secret for the time being. We will only know after we meet. However, none of the people behind the Poly Group are easy to deal with. It's not good for me to give them face. By the way, sister, you should know the specific members of the Poly Group's board of directors, right? Tell me, and let me make some preparations. Hee, just like you said, none of them are easy to deal with. Zhao Yuqin smiled and said, The key figures of the Poly Group, including the son-in-law of Duke Deng, the son-in-law of Mr. Yang, and the son of Mr. Wang are also in there. Zhou Hao also gasped when he heard that. Although those were the retired old revolutionary families, their influence in the country was still very great. These were all red families, and they were the best of the best. Zhao Yuqin continued, These families have accumulated a lot of connections over the years. It would be good for you to make friends with them, but you have to be careful. After all, not everyone has a friendly attitude towards our Zhao family. Zhou Hao nodded. He knew about this kind of thing. Moreover, it was worth thinking about why that mysterious big shot wanted to meet him. Sure enough, Kong Fuqiao contacted Zhou Hao 2 days later. Zhou Hao, that mister is not in Guangzhou, but in Xiamen. He wants you to meet him there. Kong Fuqiao said to Zhou Hao, Our company will send you there. Due to the other party's strong background, Zhou Hao did not have any dissatisfaction, so he agreed to Kong Fuqiao's request. Due to Zhao Yuqin's identity, sometimes she also needed to avoid arousing suspicion. She could not go with Zhou Hao, so she could only order him to be careful. Kong Fuqiao seemed to be only responsible for the pity between the mysterious person and Zhou Hao. He did not go with Zhou Hao. He only arranged another manager at the Poly Group to be in charge of Zhou Hao's trip. It was only 5 o'clock in the afternoon when they took a plane from Guangzhou to Xiamen and arrived at Gaoqi International Airport. The sun was still very bright. There were also people arranged to pick up Zhou Hao's plane. They were 2 tall and cold men. Anyone with discerning eyes could tell that they were from the army. Judging from their quality, they were probably from the special forces. Mr. Zhou, the chief is busy. Let us take you to the mansion to rest first. One of them said. Zhou Hao nodded and sat in the car arranged by the other party. He entered Xiamen City with the manager of the Poly Group who accompanied him. At the same time, he kept thinking about which big shot wanted to see him and why it was so mysterious. This one was arranged to come with Zhou Hao. He was the manager of the Human Resources Department of the Poly Group. His name was Huang Yuan, and he was a man in his 40s with an average-looking face. He would always smile and never get angry at anyone. And because he was a little fat, he smiled like a Maitreya Buddha. Zhou Hao knew that Huang Yuan's position in the Poly Group was not very high, at least not as high as Kong Fuqiao. Because in a place like the Poly Group, which had a very deep official background, the Human Resources Department was basically a marionette controlled by those gods above. Hiring ordinary employees at the lowest level was still manageable. If it were some more important positions, it would not be Huang Yuan's turn to decide. Basically, it would be arranged according to the list that was sent down. The reason why he was sent over to accompany Zhou Hao was actually to let him be Zhou Hao's accompany. Originally, the job of accompany should be handled by young and beautiful women. But Kong Fuqiao could vaguely guess the relationship between Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin. He thought that if Zhao Yuqin knew that he had arranged a female companion for Zhou Hao, would she still be able to hang around in the future? Following the 2 elites who had obviously come out of the army, Zhou Hao and Huang Yuan arrived at a 3-story villa with a European style in the downtown area of Xiamen. This villa was not a modern luxury villa like the green osmanthus garden. It was an old house that was 50 to 60 years old. Obviously, it had existed here before the war. Moreover, it was ancient and unique. One side of the wall was covered with vines. On the signboard beside the gate outside the villa, there were the words, Shangda House written in a proper script. Those who could own this kind of mansion were not ordinary people. This made Zhou Hao even more curious about that mysterious person. After entering the mansion, Zhou Hao saw that the layout of the house was indeed the style from 50 to 60 years ago. There was even a phonograph on the wooden tea table over there. There were also quite a number of servants here. There were about 8 to 9 people, all of whom were men and women in their 30s or 40s. They should have been working here for more than 10 years. After Zhou Hao and Huang Yuanyuan sat down in the hall, a man in his 50s, who looked like a housekeeper, poured them 2 cups of fragrant hot tea. Huang Yuanyuan took a sip and exclaimed, "It's the authentic English Kawayoshi black tea." Zhou Hao also took a small sip. However, although the iced tea series produced by the Tianhe Drink Group had become popular throughout the country and even swept across Hong Kong and Taiwan, and was heading towards Japan and Korea, Zhou Hao himself did not have a deep understanding of tea culture. He also did not know the real situation of the British black tea, but he knew that in the 178th century, when the British were scrambling for the black tea in China, in fact, most of the tea that was shipped from China to the United Kingdom at a high price was actually tea with inferior quality. Listening to Huang Yuanyuan talk about the uniqueness of this English Kawain black tea with interest, the servants brought over many exquisite examples. There were all kinds of Western and Chinese styles, and the degree of craftiness left Zhou Hao flabbergasted. For example, the bowl of desserts that resembled crystal dumplings had actually been carved into the shape of sparrows. Even the rice-sized feathers on the wings were vivid and lifelike, making it hard for people to bear to put them into their mouths. Zhou Hao thought to himself, the chefs here can be called national experts. They can't be the royal chefs of the Central and South Seas, right? Huang Yuanyuan was also dumbstruck as he looked at the dazzling display of desserts in front of him. He then pointed to the plate of 1,000-layer crispy noodles and said, "This is the golden 1,000-layer crispy noodles, although it looks like an ordinary 1,000-layer crispy noodles. However, this golden 1,000-layer crispy noodles can be maintained for 3 days and 3 nights as crisp as a freshly cooked stove. I've eaten it once at the banquet at the fishing platform before." Zhou Hao was even more surprised. He thought to himself, who exactly is this mysterious person? The chef in the Shangda residences is clearly the imperial chef. It can't be that he's a committee member of the regulatory committee, right? The servants in the hall were also very considerate. After preparing the food for Zhou Hao and the others, they went out with the butler to prevent Zhou Hao and Huang Yuanyuan from feeling uncomfortable. After that, they would come in once in a while to add tea for Zhou Hao and Huang Yuanyuan, or bring away the empty plates. They would also provide everything that Zhou Hao and the others needed. "Manager Huang, is it that master who wants to see me? Do you know?" Although Zhou Hao kept thinking about which big shot wanted to meet him, he still couldn't help but taste the exquisite desserts made by the imperial chef. After a taste, he couldn't stop and worked with Huang Yuanyuan and to wipe out all the desserts on the table. Huang Yuanyuan drank a mouthful of black tea and let out a satisfied sigh before saying, "Mr. Zhou, I won't hide it from you anymore. Actually, I know nothing about the identity of this powerful person. Assistant Kong told me not to ask or inquire about it. I just need to take good care of you, Mr. Zhou. That's why I don't dare to meddle in other people's business." Since even Huang Yuanyuan didn't know who the other party was, Zhou Hao had no choice but to stop guessing blindly. He settled his heart and waited for the other party to return. However, he didn't know what kind of important matter the other party was busy with. Zhou Hao and the others had been staying here for 2 to 3 hours, but they still didn't see him return. Fortunately, the Shangda residences had everything here. After Zhou Hao and Huang Yuanyuan took a comfortable hot bath, they still did not see him come back. There were actually massage masters who were over 60 years old who helped them massage. At the end of the day, they could go to a small movie theater on the 2nd floor to watch a movie. However, the Shangda house only had classic revolutionary movies such as The War of Resistance and The Long March period. Otherwise, it would be TV dramas such as Romance of the Three Kingdoms and The Legend of Water Margin. Zhou Hao even saw the Great Ming Palace Poetry and the Kangxi Dynasty series produced by his Galaxy Satellite TV series. They were 2 very popular large-scale ancient costume dramas in the country. Seriously, I already have more than 10 billion yuan. In terms of enjoyment, I can't even compare to this guy. No, I have to build a Zhou mansion when I get back. Zhou Hao thought as he enjoyed the facilities and services in the Shangda residences. At that moment, his phone rang. Zhou Hao saw that the number belonged to Lei Hu, so he picked up the call. "Hello, Lei Hu? Why are you looking for me?" "Boss, are you in Xiamen right now?" Lei Hu said on the phone. "Yes, I just came today." "What happened? Did something happen on Pluto? Or did Sister Qingqing and the others have an accident?" Zhou Hao asked nervously. He was a little afraid of getting a call from Lei Hu, because normally speaking, what Lei Hu brought was not good news. Lei Hu said with a smile, "No, boss. The operation of Pluto is normal, and all the young ladies are very safe. It's because Daniel and I are here in Xiamen. I just received news from Miss Zhao that you are here, so I asked you to come." "You are in Xiamen with Daniel? Aren't you guys in Xiang City?" After the matter of Hengda real estate was over, Lei Hu and the group of Pluto members that were temporarily transferred over naturally retreated back to Xiang City. Boss, when we went back earlier, you were the one who told me not to bother you if it wasn't something particularly important, Lei Hu said with some grievance. That was because Zhou Hao did not want anyone to disturb his and Zhao Yuqin's world. That was why he told Lei Hu to do so. He heard Lei Hu say, 2 days ago, I received news that Fu Jian has an underground martial arts seminar to be held. Not only martial arts masters in our country, but also martial arts masters from all over the world will gather to participate in this martial arts seminar. I was curious, so I came over to take a look. You should know Dinyo's personality as well. After he knew that there was a martial arts seminar here, he pestered me to come with him. I saw that there was nothing important about this matter, so I didn't tell you. Martial arts seminar? Why didn't I know? I'm an expert, after all. Zhou Hao said in surprise. Lei Hu said, Boss, why would an expert like you care about these things? If a super expert like you end up like this, then the rest of you don't have to participate. Just give up and go home. Zhou Hao scolded with a smile. This *TTY Underground Martial Arts Seminar is basically an underground black fist. Hee, the boss is wise. You're right, this is indeed an underground black fist. Lei Hu said, I've asked around. This so-called martial arts seminar is actually called the Underworld King Cup World Kung Fu Games. It is held once every 2 years, and it is also held in various countries like the Olympic Games. This year is the 13th session, and it just so happens that it is China's turn to host it. So this Underworld King Cup World Kung Fu Games is very famous in the underground world, such as mercenaries, mafia, and terrorists. Almost every underground organization with powerful forces will send representatives to participate in the competition, and even the governments of some countries will secretly send experts to participate in the competition. After listening to Lei Hu's introduction, Zhou Hao found out that there was actually such a large and mysterious underground competition. Lei Hu continued, the prize money for this underground boxing competition is very generous. In the final round, the winner will receive a huge prize money of $100 million. The second and third place winners will also receive a reward of $10 million and $1 million respectively. However, compared to the bet at the periphery of the underground boxing match, this money is just a drop in the ocean. Right, every contestant must pay $100,000 to sign up. Zhou Hao knew that the gambling games of these underground boxing matches often involved unimaginable amounts of money. Those drug lords, mafia leaders, and terrorist organizations all had their own ways of making money. Their wealth was even greater than those wealthy people on Forbes. Hearing Lei Hu's words, Zhou Hao did not know whether to laugh or cry. You didn't sign up to participate, did you? Sigh. With my strength, how would I dare to compete with those strong people? Lei Hu said, however, Dinyo signed up? Dinyo signed up? Zhou Hao was surprised, but he quickly understood. No wonder. Dinyo is obsessed with martial arts. He will not let go of such an opportunity. Furthermore, with his martial arts, there should not be any problems. Oh right, where is the venue? I'll go and take a look too. Lei Hu said honestly, it's in a place called Chaoxian Villa on the outskirts of Xiamen. *M in it. I didn't know there was such a place even if I didn't come here. There's actually an underground gymnasium underneath the manor. It's not inferior to the provincial gymnasiums in the city. All right, I'll contact you when the time comes. As Zhou Hao spoke, he ended the call. Zhou Hao did not plan to go immediately, because he still had to wait for the mysterious person to meet him. Lei Hu had said that this world boxing competition would be held at least a week, and Zhou Hao still had time. At this time, Huang Yuanyuan smiled at Zhou Hao and said, Mr. Zhou, do you also like watching underground boxing matches? He had obviously gotten a lot of information from Zhou Hao's words. Zhou Hao also smiled and said, Oh, Manager Huang, you are also interested? Actually, when I went to work in the United States in the past, my colleagues took me to watch the underground boxing match. Huang Yuanyuan laughed a lot. Originally, I had no interest in the Western boxing matches, but the atmosphere of the underground boxing matches was much higher than the formal and legal boxing matches. When you're in it, you can't help but blend in, especially after you put your bet on one of the contestants. Furthermore, the rules of the formal boxing matches were not very particular in the underground boxing matches. The scene of blood flowing out of every move could really make one's blood boil. You won't be able to experience it if you don't go. As for the situation at that time, Huang Yuanyuan's face was full of exultation, as if he had returned to that kind of exciting scene. Zhou Hao had never been to a real underground boxing match. He had only seen it in some movies. He knew that these underground boxing matches were actually like a coliseum in Rome, satisfying the primal desire for blood and violence in the hearts of humans. It was undeniable that humans evolved from wild beasts that ate raw meat and drank blood. Their genes contained that primitive nature. No matter how moral and rational they advanced, this point could not be erased. At this time, one of the people who picked Zhou Hao up at the airport walked in and said to Zhou Hao, "Mr. Zhou, our chief's work is done. He asked us to send you to his place to meet him." Didn't he come back here? Zhou Hao asked. The man said, "Our chief is having a gathering with a friend of his, so he invited you over to his place. Mr. Zhou, please." He made an inviting gesture, and so, Zhou Hao followed him out. As for Huang Yuan, since the other party didn't invite him, he naturally wouldn't dare to follow him. He automatically went back to the guest room to sleep. The car was still the simple and proper red flag car that Zhou Hao had taken from the airport. Zhou Hao also noticed it. There was nothing special about the license plate number of this red flag car. It was neither the exclusive car of the provincial government nor the public car of the city government. It was not like those wealthy people who had a few numbers of 8. Instead, it was very ordinary. There was no special logo on the windshield, but this car was unimpeded in Xiamen City. When passing through the traffic station, one could even see the traffic police saluting the car from afar. From Kong Fuqiao's words, Zhou Hao deduced that the person who invited him was not a local official of Xiamen or Fujian. He was more like someone from Beijing. However, from the reactions of the traffic police, this person's influence in Xiamen was not small. Along the way, Zhou Hao found that the car slowly drove away from the city center and entered a narrow road. Zhou Hao also saw a road sign at the entrance of the road, with the words Huaguang Road written on it. Not long after, Zhou Hao arrived at a courtyard. There were several 7 or 8 stories tall buildings inside. They were completely red and did not look special. However, there were many cars parked in the courtyard, and most of them were middle-class and low-class cars. Zhou Hao also saw a few cars that were Model 80 Santana and Jetta. This is the office of a government department? Zhou Hao looked at the dark night and saw that there were no special buildings except for the red color. He could not help but ask the guard beside him, "Is your chief inside?" The guard nodded and said lightly, "This land and the buildings belong to the government. However, this is not the office of the government. It is a private clubhouse. I cannot explain the details. Mr. Zhou, you will know when you go in." He followed the guard to the building and saw the main entrance. It wasn't big, but there were 2 red lanterns hanging outside the entrance. There were also 2 women in red cheongsam standing in the front hall. Upon closer inspection, the 2 women didn't look like ordinary hotel guests. They actually had a noble and generous temperament. Moreover, their appearances and figures were very good, and they were even more beautiful than some female artistes. The receptionist at the door is just this kind of quality. Just what kind of place is this? Zhou Hao couldn't help but think to himself. He found that there were no stairs here. There was only an elevator. Taking the elevator, Zhou Hao went straight to the highest floor, the 7th floor. The moment he stepped out of the elevator, he saw that the corridor outside was actually beautifully decorated. It was a completely different world from the outside. There was also a very imposing Namu wooden door over there. The guard led Zhou Hao to the door. He carefully knocked on the door and said respectfully, "Chief, I brought Mr. Zhou here. Come in." A very calm male voice came from inside. Just by listening to this voice, Zhou Hao could tell that the person inside was a person who had been in power for a long time and was used to giving orders. This voice contained an aura that was not angry but powerful, which made Zhou Hao even more curious. When he pushed open the door and entered, he saw a very spacious and extravagant office. A tall, middle-aged man with a square face sat behind the Namu desk. His appearance was not outstanding, but his eyes were bright and full of spirit. He slightly pursed his lips. It could not be seen whether he was happy or angry, but it could make people feel a kind of pressure. On another table at the side, there was also a relatively short man who had a kind smile hanging on his face. He felt that it was somewhat similar to Huang Yuan, who welcomed people with a smile. Furthermore, Zhou Hao felt that this man looked familiar. He didn't know where he had seen this man before. It seemed that the person who invited him to meet at Xiamen was the middle-aged man with a strong aura. Ever since Zhou Hao came in, his eyes had been fixed on Zhou Hao. It was as if he had scanned Zhou Hao several times. While he was observing Zhou Hao was also looking at him. He was not afraid of his sharp eyes. The other party did not speak. Zhou Hao did not speak. Neither did the smiling man. The guard behind him did not dare to make a sound, so the spacious office fell into a stiff silence. After a long time, the corners of the middle-aged man's mouth curled up slightly, and he smiled at Zhou Hao. As expected of the person who Zhao family has high hopes for. As expected, the new generation is pushing the old generation to the new generation. He had never seen a young man who could stare at him for such a long time, but still remained neither servile nor overbearing. Zhou Hao's calmness had made him look at him in a new light. Zhou Hao only nodded and said, "You flatter me too much. Kid, Zhou Hao, I have yet to ask your honorable name." Zhou Hao had never seen this imposing middle-aged man before, but judging from his imposing manner and the group of people behind the group of people, none of them were good men and women. Therefore, Zhou Hao did not dare to be impudent in front of this man. Ha 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 ha. The man laughed heartily. The smiling man also said, "Little brother, this big brother of mine is a very important person. If you can get his appreciation, you will have a bright future ahead of you." The middle-aged man smiled and said, "My surname is Ji. I am now working in the General Staff Department. As for the exact position, it is not convenient to tell you. Otherwise, it will be a secret of the country." Ji, Zhou Hao repeated. Ji was a rare surname in the country, but this surname had a great background. It was said that Emperor Huang Xuanyuan's surname was Ji, and the Zhou dynasty was built by Ji Changji and his son. Ji was also the surname of the Zhou dynasty's royal family. It was one of the few names in China that represented the royal family. There were also very few people with the surname Ji who held high positions in the country. Zhou Hao vaguely remembered that there was a former leader with the surname Ji. Wait, Zhou Hao was shocked when he thought of the former leader. It wasn't because of the identity of the former leader that shocked him, but because the leader involved a sect. It was a big case that could shake the imperial court, and the main culprit was the son of the leader. In the end, he also committed suicide because of his son's case. Zhou Hao looked at the middle-aged man with the surname Ji in front of him in a daze. He only felt that his back was drenched in cold sweat. He swallowed his saliva and asked with a serious expression, "Excuse me, are you the son of Mr. Ji, the current deputy minister of the General Staff Department, General Ji?" Hearing Zhou Hao's words, the faces of the two men in front of him changed. The eyes of the man named Ji sparkled. After a long while, he said with a smile, "It seems like we have underestimated you. I didn't expect you to know about me. Was it the old master of Zhao family who told you about it?" Zhou Hao was stunned as if he had been struck by lightning. He didn't seem to hear what this man named Ji said. After getting the final confirmation, Zhou Hao already knew who the man in front of him was. He was wailing in his heart. "My God, why am I so unlucky to be pulled over by this guy? This guy is a mine that I can't touch." Regarding the major case that this man named Ji was involved in, Zhou Hao didn't know the details of the case because it involved highly confidential information of the country. He had only read some relevant reports in his previous life. His father, the former leader of the country named Ji, was a meritorious official of the country. He had also held the position of deputy prime minister and could be said to be a generation of loyal and good people. And this General Ji in front of Zhou Hao was also a true loyal descendant. Similar to Zhao Dingzhou, who was a second generation, General Ji also held a high position and was the deputy minister of the second department of the General Staff. The General Staff Department, the General Staff Department, and the General Administration Department were all the military intelligence departments in the country. Although this was something that could be put on the table, the outside world did not know how many secret organizations like the First Army still existed. However, General Ji could be considered as the head of the special forces in the military, and he was in charge of a very important department. Therefore, although General Ji's current rank was only that of a major general and was far from Zhao Dingzhou's rank of lieutenant general, his importance was not much less than Zhao Dingzhou's. The outside world knew very little about the intelligence department of China, especially the military's intelligence department, including Zhou Hao, before he came into contact with the Zhao family and the First Army. Most people would think of the Central Intelligence Bureau, the National Defense Intelligence Bureau, the National Security Bureau, the MI6 in England, and the KGB in Russia the moment they mention the intelligence department. Because many movies showed the image of these intelligence agencies and their high-tech methods to the public. Including the people of China, very few people would think of China's intelligence agencies and the power to obtain information. This did not mean that China's intelligence department was weaker than other countries. On the contrary, China's intelligence department was actually very powerful and was more advanced than America and England in many aspects. However, China did a very strict job of keeping the intelligence department confidential. At the same time, China's control of public opinion was the strongest and most effective among all the countries in the world, even though to a certain extent, it affected the development of public opinion. However, it also ensured the stability of the country. As the saying goes, good fighters have no outstanding achievements. The fewer people who knew about China's intelligence department, the more highlighted its ability to keep secrets. Zhou Hao only began to understand that China's intelligence department was not inferior to those in America and England after he came into contact with important figures in the military like Zhao Rixin, Zhao Dingzhou, and Big Boss. There were more than 100,000 people in the intelligence department of China who were monitoring international calls. Moreover, their monitoring technology was very advanced. In his previous life, Zhou Hao had seen a military program that said that America had an automatic listening system that could lock down the target's voice. Once this particular frequency of sound appeared on the phone, the system would automatically monitor and analyze it. In fact, similar monitoring systems existed in China as well. If one wanted to pay attention to anyone, they could package the original sound and the most similar sound before sending them for analysis. American citizens often said that the government secretly monitored their privacy, but at least they still had this awareness. However, in China, the intelligence department monitored the domestic phone and other information flow. Most people didn't know that their lives had fallen into the eyes of others, nor did they have this kind of awareness. It could be seen that the intelligence departments of China were usually very quiet when they did things. Very few people were able to notice whether it was the beginning or the end. The second division of the General Staff Department that General Ji was in charge of a large amount of important intelligence and national secrets. However, this important member of the military, who had a high position and a sensitive identity, had actually been instigated by the United States and Taiwan to rebel. He had become a huge bomb that they had planted in China's military, and he had become a major threat to China. Zhou Hao clearly remembered that after the Beijing authorities arrested General Ji, the leader of the Ji family, who had retired to the second tier but still had quite a bit of influence, had been running around, asking his old comrades to help him save his son. Although his old comrades had all become important leaders of the country, the facts that his son had committed were too serious. This directly led to the UA and Taiwan knowing about the domestic military arrangements, causing the domestic military defenses to be useless. Thus, no one dared to protect his son. That leader named Ji knew that his son was dead for sure. In despair, he committed suicide, wanting to protect his son with his death. This big case involved more than 10 important members of the General Staff Department and the General Administration Department. The heads of the General Staff Department, the General Staff Department, and the General Affairs Liaison Department were all removed. Therefore, this high-spirited General Ji in front of Zhou Hao was a powerful bomb. Not only did he suffer, but even the people around him would not have a good ending. If it was possible, Zhou Hao really wanted to turn around and leave. He would just pretend that he had never seen this person before, in case he and the Zhao family were implicated. However, Zhou Hao only remembered that General Ji had been instigated to rebel. Even his wife and son had become legal citizens in the United States, but he did not remember if the country had noticed him. In Zhou Hao's previous life, General Ji was arrested on April 20th, 1999. His case was also known as the 420 case. Or perhaps the reports Zhou Hao saw in his previous life were just smokes released by the government on purpose. In fact, General Ji had been monitored by the country for a long time. If that was the case, then the country might have noticed Zhou Hao meeting him here today. Zhou Hao knew who was unlucky to meet this guy in front of him, so he was very upset in his heart. However, he didn't show it on his face. He still had that calm expression on his face. General Ji didn't doubt him. He just smiled at Zhou Hao and said, "Zhou Hao, actually, I have a clear understanding of your situation." As he spoke, he told Zhou Hao about Zhou Hao's family situation and his birth date and other information as if he was memorizing a book. He even told him about the previous generations of his ancestors. Zhou Hao was indifferent because he knew that with General Ji's intelligence department, it would be very easy for them to find out about this. "I'm just curious. 96 years ago, you were just an ordinary child. There was nothing worth mentioning in the family. However, ever since you saved the lady of the Zhao family by chance, the trajectory of your fate seemed to have changed in a straight line. The most surprising thing was that you didn't use the energy of the Zhao family at the beginning. Instead, you relied entirely on your own ability to earn the first bucket of gold from the stock market, and then you lost control." He looked at Zhou Hao and said with a smile, "Your Galaxy investment company has earned more than $15 billion from the financial market since 1997. It has never been defeated before. Even the most famous investment company on Wall Street can't do it." He turned to the man beside him and said, "Old Lai, look at Zhou Hao. He is not even 20 years old yet, but he already has more than $10 billion. You've worked so hard for so many years, but you can't even reach 2/10 of his net worth. Haha, a genius like Zhou Hao. How can a stupid, blunt person like me compare to him?" The man with the surname Lai was not angry at all. He still had the same smiling expression. Hearing General Ji call that man Old Lai, he asked General Ji, General G, I don't know this friend of yours yet. Introduce him to me. Haha, him. Actually, this guy is also famous here. He is one of the most successful entrepreneurs in our country. He is also the biggest taxpayer in Xiamen. The sales volume of Yuan Hua Company under him exceeds 10 billion annually. However, it is not as good as Zhou Hao. He only earns RMB. Alright, I heard the words Yuan Hua Company. Zhou Hao did not need to know the name of this man with the surname Lai. He just kept cursing in his heart. My God, are you going to let me live? These guys are getting more and more difficult to deal with. He had already guessed who this man with the surname Lai was. In his heart, he thought, I should have known who this guy was a long time ago. This is Xiamen, isn't it his base camp? And this red building, isn't it the famous red building? Zhou Hao thought, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country? The biggest taxpayer in Xiamen? This man with the surname Lai should be the most daring maggot in China, the maggot of the country. This guy had already paid tens of billions of tax evasion, so what was the point of saying that he was a big taxpayer? The Yuan Hua Company under him was specialized in smuggling. That's right. This man with the surname Lai was China's most famous and boldest smuggler since the founding of China, Lai Chongqing. This person's smuggler case's influence in China was not inferior to General G's. A large number of Xiamen, Fujian, and even Beijing officials were corrupted by his candied shells and became the strongest and most powerful umbrella for his smuggling group. The high-ranking officials who were disqualified because of him were of such a high level and number that the outside world could not imagine before the crime. After seeing these two people who would become famous in China in the future, Zhou Hao even wondered if he should directly capture them and hand them over to Zhao Rixin, Premier Zhu, and the others to prevent himself from being caught in the crossfire. However, if the country had not started paying attention to these two people, it would be very difficult for him to touch them. Not to mention General G's father, who had contributed to the country's development. He himself was a person who held great power. As for Lai Chongqing, he couldn't be underestimated. There were countless high-ranking officials who had been pulled into the pirate ship by him. If they joined forces to deal with Zhou Hao, even with the Zhao family behind them, they wouldn't be able to handle it. Zhou Hao clearly remembered how many high-ranking officials had jumped out to plead for him when Yuan Hua Company was banned in his previous life. If it wasn't for the fact that Premier Zhu had made up his mind to get rid of this huge tumor, he would have been stopped by those officials who had joined forces. General G knew about Zhou Hao's Galaxy Investment Company, but Zhou Hao wasn't surprised, even though he kept the company's economic activities a secret. Even George Soros and other financial tycoons did not know that when they attacked the financial markets in Southeast Asia, Galaxy investment companies would follow them and take advantage of the situation. They would even earn more than Soros himself. The people in the financial world did not know about the existence of Galaxy Investment, but for an intelligence agency like the Second Department of General Staff Department, as long as they put in some effort, they would be able to get back what they wanted to know. Zhou Hao, this red building, is a high-class entertainment club that the old man has carefully run. If you are not a member, you will definitely not be able to enter. General G smiled at Zhou Hao and said, all the unexpected services you can think of can be provided here. It is much better than my Shengda residences. Many people came specially from Beijing. How about I ask someone to bring you down to enjoy? Hee. There are many idols and female celebrities here that young people like very much. Whether it's those sexy female celebrities that are broadcasted far and wide or those shy female sect heads, you can find them here. Zhou Hao naturally knew what kind of people the members in this red building were. In his previous life, he also knew that the red building was extremely luxurious. There were restaurants, sauna, suites, casinos, and all sorts of entertainment places, so that the customers could meet all the material needs here. After dinner, they could go take a bath in the sauna, then go to the casino and play a few rounds. Finally, they could go to the rooms upstairs to enjoy their beauty. Lai Chongqing had indeed spent a lot of effort on managing the red building. There were a few rooms that were comparable to the 5-star presidential suite, and they were specially provided for the big members from Beijing. Furthermore, every room had excellent soundproofing effects. Guests could enjoy themselves as much as they wanted without being disturbed by the outside world once they entered. The women in the red building were all young and beautiful. There were even many female celebrities that were specially invited back, just like the female celebrities in ancient brothels. Under this kind of all-round enjoyment, it was no wonder that those officials could not resist the temptation to join Lai Chongqing's smuggler group. Although this place could provide all the entertainment and enjoyment, Zhou Hao did not want to stay any longer. He smiled at General G and said, General G and Boss Lai, I appreciate your good intentions. However, I am not interested in these things, so I have to let you down. Indeed, food wasn't very tempting to Zhou Hao. As for gambling, Zhou Hao was an expert at the gamble god level. If Lai Chongqing dared to accompany him, he was absolutely confident that Lai Chongqing's net worth of tens of billions of yuan would be completely lost. As for the beauty, Zhou Hao did not deny that he was a lustful person. However, his lustful nature was only used on the women he liked. As for those Feng Chen women who had 1,000 arms and 1,000 arms, and even a little bit of cinnabar lips, they really could not afford to have an appetite. In response to Zhou Hao's refusal, Lai Chongqing, who had been smiling all along, changed his facial expression. This was because money and beauty had always been his killer move to win over others. It was also his biggest reliance. Relying on money and beautiful women, he was able to gather a large number of high-ranking officials by his side to protect himself. However, these trump cards had lost their effectiveness in front of Zhou Hao for the first time. Even if Zhou Hao's net worth was far inferior to his, Lai Chongqing believed that no man could resist the temptation of beauty. Even eunuchs would satisfy their incomplete desires by abusing women, as well as monks and the like. It wasn't that they weren't lustful. It wasn't that they had never come into contact with women when they were young, but that they had forcefully suppressed their desires. Therefore, when he heard that Zhou Hao had rejected him, he felt that it wasn't that Zhou Hao didn't like women, but that he didn't give him face. After running the business for so long, Lai Chongqing had actually become the uncrowned king of Xiamen. Not to mention the officials of Xiamen or Fujian, even the leaders of the countries in the capital felt that there was nothing he couldn't bribe. He paid more attention to face than other upstarts. Thus, he narrowed his eyes. His smile was no longer as friendly as before. Instead, it was unusually gloomy. "Brother Zhou, you're not looking down on Brother Ji and me, are you?" Zhou Hao said with a smile. "How can that be? It's just that I feel that I'm very young and not suitable for those. Hee, please forgive me." General Ji also said to Lai Chongqing with a smile. "Old Lai, don't make things difficult for Xiao Hao. Xiao Hao is a pure and self-loving young man. How could he learn from you? If the old man of Zhao family finds out that you have spoiled his godson, you will be in trouble." Lai Chongqing's expression changed, because he had asked people to look for the Zhao family many times. He had even tried to go to the capital personally, but he had never had the chance to see Zhao Rixin again and again. Lai Chongqing was a little afraid of someone like Zhao Rixin, who had great strength in both the political and military, and was a little stubborn. At this time, two beautiful female attendants in red cheongsams came in with a few bottles of Maodai wine. When they opened the bottles, the entire room was filled with the strong fragrance of wine. It was probably a wine that had been aged for decades. Come. Let's not talk about other things first. This is a rare good wine. Xiao Hao, you should try it too." General Ji handed one of the glasses of wine to Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao didn't want to refuse it, and the aroma of the wine was really tempting, so he took it. Once it entered his mouth, Zhou Hao finally knew what the real jade nectar wine was. It really made him have a lot of aftertaste. At this time, including General Ji's guard, the rest of the people had gone out. Only Zhou Hao, General Ji, and Lai Chongqing were left. Zhou Hao knew that they were going to talk business with him, and he really wanted to know why General Ji wanted to meet him. "Xiao Hao, I have never seen such an outstanding young man like you. Not even the disciples of the other big families are comparable to you." General Ji looked deeply at Zhou Hao, because those disciples were born with a much higher starting point than others. They also have abundant resources. This innate advantage allows them to achieve extraordinary things even if their abilities are mediocre. Zhou Hao felt General Ji's bright eyes staring at him. "And you don't have their innate advantage. Your family is even poorer than ordinary people. However, those aristocratic children can't compare to you because you rely on your own hard work to change your destiny. Those aristocratic children are just inheritances. You are creating. A talent like you will be the leading force in the future of this world." Zhou Hao listened to General Ji's words quietly. He didn't feel like he was floating, but he felt that General Ji seemed to have a strong sense of disdain and anger towards those children of noble families. However, he was a member of the science. He was a typical example of the red second generation. Why did he look down on the other science? Zhou Hao knew that General Ji was actually a very capable person. Although the things he had committed could not be redeemed even if he died 10,000 times, it could not erase his talent. In his previous life, when he worked in Yellowstone Group, due to business interaction, Zhou Hao met a lieutenant colonel by chance. He also knew some insider information. Of course, these were all extremely limited. Furthermore, the degree of confidentiality was not high. Otherwise, with the rank of the lieutenant colonel, it would be impossible for him to know. That officer told Zhou Hao that in 1999, China's embassy in Yugoslavia was bombarded by UA fighter jets. Although UA did their best to claim that it was a false explosion, it was actually intentional. Because before that, the South Alliance Army used the missiles made by China to shoot down an UA fighter jet. Logically speaking, with China's missiles, it was unlikely that they would shoot down the most advanced invisible combat jet prototype in the United States. At that time, it was unknown whether the South Alliance Army was lucky or the invisible combat jet prototype deserved to be unlucky. In any case, it was shot down. This matter naturally made the United States very nervous, because the technology covered by the invisible combat jet prototype was too important. If China obtained it, it would bring them endless trouble. At that time, the secret personnel of the South Alliance in China hid the main components of the invisible combat jet in the Yugoslav embassy. After the American army learned of this situation, because they were unable to retrieve the components, they simply sent the fighter aircraft to bombard the embassy and destroy the components along with them, so as to avoid falling into China's hands. However, what the UA did not know was that most of the parts were still protected and secretly brought back to China. And the ones who brought them back to China were the people from the General Staff Department, General G's subordinates. Although the United States later found out about this matter, they had no evidence to back it up. Moreover, they were too busy defending themselves because of the mistaking the embassy incident, so they could not do anything about China. Later on, in order to prevent the related rumors from appearing, China deliberately leaked this matter. Instead, it caused people in the outside world to fall into layers of suspicion and achieve the goal of stopping the rumors. The final result was that even if the United States pointed out that China had seized their stealth fighter technology, no one would believe it. Then he heard General G say to Zhou Hao, "Xiao Hao, to be honest, I admire you. Especially your financial ability. Even George Soros and the others couldn't compare to you. So, I have a project that I want to work with you on." Zhou Hao could roughly guess what General G wanted to work with him on. Since he had hooked up with Lai Chongqing, the head of the smuggling industry, he naturally had an astronomical sum of money in his hands. However, most of this money was black money that couldn't be exposed. So Zhou Hao reckoned that they wanted to use his financial ability to turn that money from black to white. Zhou Hao could understand why General G and Lai Chongqing wanted him to help them with the money laundering. The so-called black money was money that couldn't be seen in the open. Its source must be illegal, such as drug trafficking, arms trafficking, smuggling, fraud, and robbery. It also included the money earned from tax evasion. Money laundering was to legalize these illegal gains through a series of transactions and conversion. The most important thing was to conceal their real source and put on a legal coat. For criminal groups, the fine white of black money was an extremely important part. It allowed them to openly and legally enjoy these illegal gains and increase their criminal influence through reinvestment. In fact, the amount of underground funds circulating around the world was much more than the liquid funds in the financial market, which was also the hot money. Due to the importance of money laundering to criminal groups, the money laundering group also developed more and more in the direction of refinement and specialization. It even became a banker in the underground world, providing laundering services for various criminal groups. Whether it was in his past life as a financial staff of Yellowstone Group, or in this life becoming a mysterious force that could not be underestimated in the financial market, Zhou Hao clearly knew that as long as he was familiar with the law, with sufficient professional skills in financial operations, it was actually very easy to launder money, especially through multinational financial institutions. Those black money could be easily converted into legal income through the internationally close economic and trade relationship. And the larger and more famous the financial institutions, the easier it was to complete the money laundering procedure. However, unless it was a criminal group with enormous power and financial resources, such as international mafia groups, drug lords, or terrorist organizations, they would launder money through professional financial institutions or simply set up financial institutions that specialized in money laundering by themselves. Just like those drug lords in South America, they opened their own banks. Not only would they launder money for their own drug cartel, but they could also provide services for other criminal organizations. As for those unaffiliated criminals who did not form a group, they would usually use casinos to carry out the simplest laundering of money. Therefore, gambling cities like Macau and Las Vegas were actually places for laundering money. This was also why the corrupt officials in the country liked to run to Macau and Las Vegas. Although the Galaxy Investment Company under Zhou Hao was unknown in the financial world, the truth was that the Galaxy Investment Company had already become the strongest private investment organization in Asia. After continuous expansion, the official employees of the Galaxy had broken through 200 people, and all of them were considered financial elites. These people were recruited from all over the world, including the United States, England, Switzerland and France, India, and even Japan. Every one of them had their own unique talent in finance. Under the lead of Song Jiahao and Willie Worth, these two most powerful operators, they became the gears to maintain the operation of Galaxy. Originally, they did not know the strength of the Galaxy. It was all because of Zhou Hao's generous salary. After joining the Galaxy, they finally saw the financial strength of the Galaxy that was not inferior to the Quantum Fund and the Tiger Fund. The talents in the Galaxy came from all the countries in the world, and the pure Chinese people were the minority. These financial talents in China were all recruited by Zhou Hao from the financial centers in Shanghai and Shenzhen, or from the high-end talents in Hong Kong. Although Zhou Hao did not like Americans and Japanese on a subjective basis, he had to admit that these people with a typical Western concept had a major characteristic. As long as they had a high enough salary, they could be loyal to their employer. What national defense? Among them who had a strong sense of democracy, they could not compare to their own work at all. Just like Zhou Hao's financial activities against the Japanese stock market, the Japanese in the company did not feel uncomfortable at all. They did not show any mercy when they operated the company. Instead, they operated the company very actively in order to increase their popularity. Moreover, ever since these people entered the Galaxy, they would immediately be monitored by the First Army's intelligence agencies. Due to the role of the Galaxy in the Indonesian crisis, Chief Number 1 and Premier Zhu had already seen the importance of the Galaxy. In addition to Zhao Rixin's relationship with them, the country attached great importance to the safety of the Galaxy. They also instructed the First Army to protect the Galaxy closely. Perhaps it was because of the importance of the highest leader to the Galaxy. In order to facilitate the operation of the Galaxy, the Domestic Financial Monitoring Department in Hong Kong, including Hong Kong, was relatively lax in the management of the Galaxy. That was why General Ji wanted to ask Zhou Hao to help them launder money. However, Zhou Hao could earn a large sum of money from just legal investments in the financial market. He did not need to help others launder money to earn external income, let alone General Ji and Lai Chongqing, these two unlucky guys. Furthermore, Zhou Hao also found it strange. Although his Galaxy was powerful, when it came to laundering money, in terms of experience and professionalism, they were far inferior to the Li family. Why didn't General Ji and Lai Chongqing look for them? After thinking for a long time, Zhou Hao smiled at General Ji and said, "It's my honor to be able to work with a big shot like General Ji. I just wonder what kind of project General Ji wants to work with this kid." General Ji naturally did not know that Zhou Hao had already made up his mind that he would definitely not help him with the money laundering. Hearing what Zhou Hao said, he immediately smiled and said, "I know that your Galaxy investment company is now specializing in financial investments. However, I think you also know that financial matters can change at any time. No one can guarantee that the market will rise or fall tomorrow, so the risk is still very high. As for the two companies in China, although the Tianhe Drink Group has earned a lot of money, they still need to pay off the loans to the big banks. As for the Polar Media Group, it is a money-burning machine. Whether it is Asia TV or Galaxy TV, they have spent a lot of money and have yet to start making profits." He knew Zhou Hao very well. Zhou Hao could not deny what he had said. However, the value of the Heavenly River Drink Group and the Polaris Media Group was not something General Ji, who was in charge of intelligence work, could know. General Ji continued, "That's why I said that not only will your two companies not bring you any benefits, they will also become your burden in the short term. Right? Also, your mother's Tongguang Food Company. Although they are developing very well, it is already considered not bad that their funds are able to support their own development and operations, let alone provide you with any help." Zhou Hao pretended to agree with General Ji's opinion and kept nodding his head, but he was sneering in his heart. Most of the companies that had achieved great success would rarely be looked favorably upon in the early stages of development before they made profits. Take Zhou Hao and the other companies, for example. Although their current economic returns were not outstanding, within 10 years, they would definitely develop and become the leaders of their respective fields. "I have a business deal with the old man here. I want to cooperate with you, Xiao Hao." General Ji smiled at Zhou Hao and said, "Because we have a small problem with our funds. We need you to help us run the business. But Xiao Hao, you can rest assured that other than the funds, there are no other problems. The risk is definitely smaller than investing in the stock market, and the returns are definitely rich." "Trade business?" Zhou Hao smiled. This was obviously Lai Chongqing's smuggling business. Because China had a very high tariff on imported products, many resources in the country were prohibited from exporting. If they could open up a channel, the smuggling business would be extremely profitable. Sometimes, the country would even acquiesce or support smuggling activities in secret. Just like in the borderlands between China and Russia, there was a large number of smuggling activities. From the aircraft cannons to the rice, grain, and salt oil, they could all be smuggled goods. Because they wanted to obtain Russia's resources and high-tech weapons, the central government basically tacitly approved of the smuggling activities in the borderlands. Sometimes, they would even send secret troops to protect the safety of the smugglers. It was even to the extent that the very famous Master Dao of China and Russia was deliberately supported by the central government. The goal was to obtain more of Russia's resources. However, this kind of smuggling activity was only active before and after the disintegration of the Soviet Union and when the Russian government was still unstable. Now, it was much less. The smuggling activities on the southeast coast of Lichang Star were the complete opposite of what happened in Russia. Not only did it not benefit the country, but it also caused huge losses to the country's economy. If Lichangxing was just a small-scale fish or shrimp, it would have been fine. But now, he had become the biggest smuggler in Asia. It was not up to the country to not make a move against him. Of course, Zhou Hao would not directly reject General Ji and Lichangxing. After he organized his thoughts, he said to the two of them, "General Ji, Boss Lai, speaking of which, it is really unfortunate. Actually, I am also very interested in your trade. However, in the past, for the sake of the next investment operation, almost all of Galaxy's funds have been transferred out. Furthermore, the few projects that the Galaxy and the National Finance Committee have collaborated on are currently in the handover phase. Therefore, the central government is keeping a close eye on the Galaxy. I have also heard of Boss Lai's trading business. If we were to cooperate with him now, the people of the National Finance Committee would definitely notice us. It doesn't matter to me. But if I get into trouble with your business, then I'll really be ashamed of my two brothers." General Ji and Lai Changxing looked at each other. Both of them were cunning and cunning. How could they not see that Zhou Hao didn't want to work with them? General Ji knew that Galaxy was in a handover with the central government, so what Zhou Hao said was the truth. He had no way to refute it. Although Zhou Hao wasn't old, General Ji didn't dare to look down on him. How could a man who could build a family worth more than $1 billion be an idiot? Furthermore, Zhou Hao had the Zhao family as his backing. Anyone who wanted to deal with Zhou Hao would have to think twice before dealing with him. Therefore, General Ji didn't express the dissatisfaction in his heart. He still smiled and said to Zhou Hao, "If that's the case, then it's really too unfortunate. Xiao Hao, don't blame yourself. After all, business isn't good. We still have many opportunities to cooperate in the future. It's fine, it's fine." When Lai Changxing heard what General Ji said, he couldn't help but say, "Big brother, but..." General Ji gave Lai Changxing a sideways glance and lightly shouted, "But what? Although we have difficulties, does Xiao Hao not have any difficulties? Do you think Xiao Hao is obligated to help us? Do you think that everyone is like you, thinking that it will be easier for us to meet in the future? Don't be so naive." Zhou Hao could tell that although General Ji was reprimanding Lai Changxing, he was actually deliberately saying those words for himself to hear. However, Zhou Hao did not say anything. He only secretly sneered in his heart and pretended that he did not understand it all on his face. He leisurely savored the wine that had been brewed over the past few decades. General Ji saw that Zhou Hao was still indifferent after he scolded Lai Changxing for so long. The gloominess in his eyes became even thicker. It was still all right for the other young people who lacked experience and intelligence. It was impossible for someone like Zhou Hao to not understand his words. Speaking of the twists and turns in the official circles, Zhou Hao could not even compare to General Ji in terms of flattery. He also had no interest in competing with General Ji in this aspect. It would be even better if General Ji got angry at him because of this. This way, he could openly avoid having any relationship with General Ji. Furthermore, Zhou Hao didn't care about how General Ji, who was about to die, felt towards him. Therefore, Zhou Hao took the initiative to say, "General Ji, Boss Lai, I was busy with the handover with the central government some time ago, and Xiao Hao didn't have a good rest. Now that I'm out of alcohol, I'll take my leave now." Xiao Hao also felt very sorry that he can't cooperate with the two of you. "I'm really sorry." Seeing Zhou Hao's determination, General Ji didn't need to say anything else. He said with a fake smile, "Young people should take care of their health. It will not be good if they suffer from unbearable pain. All right, I will get someone to send you back to Shengda House. You should have a good rest." "Oh right. I've been busy these few days, so I can't go over to see you. There are some fun places in Xiamen, so you can have some fun. If you need anything, just tell the people in the Shengda residences." Zhou Hao nodded and smiled. "Thank you, General Ji. Hee, goodbye, both of you." When Zhou Hao walked to the door, General Ji's voice came from behind. "By the way, I forgot to tell you something. Zhao Dingzhou, General Zhao, actually also does business in the trade area. The country has been very strict during this period of time. Tell him to be careful." Zhou Hao was shocked. He knew that Zhao Dingzhou also did some trade business. When he first met Zhao Yuqin, Zhao Yuqin had a trading company that specialized in Hong Kong business. Because Zhao Dingzhou took care of it, no one dared to check it out. Of course, Zhao Yuqin did legitimate business, but Zhao Dingzhou did a lot of things that involved the underground world. What Zhou Hao was worried about was that if Zhao Dingzhou's business was related to Lai Chongqing and the others, then it would be troublesome, even if Zhao Dingzhou and Lai Chongqing did not offend each other. But in the near future, the Yuan Hua case would directly cause the country to conduct a major sweep of smuggling activities. At that time, even Zhao Dingzhou would be implicated. Thank you for General Ji's reminder. Zhou Hao turned around and smiled at General Ji before leaving. He understood that this was General Ji's warning to him, which meant that the Zhao family would not be clean either. After Zhou Hao left, General Ji's face immediately turned gloomy. Lai Chongqing, who was standing beside him, said anxiously, "Big brother, what should we do?" This Zhou Hao refused to help us. Now, the country's monitoring of cross-border funds is getting stricter and stricter. It's very difficult for our money to flow out. General Ji slightly narrowed his eyes and slowly said, "If there is no other way, we can only look for that old fox Li Guangyao. But this old B***starred is very ruthless. After all, we are small places like Indonesia and Malaysia. Cooperating with Li Guangyao will be very risky. If something happens, Li Guangyao can leave everything behind, but we will suffer." Lai Chongqing also knew that finding the Li family to help with the money laundering would be quite a big risk. However, the black money in their hands had already swelled to a very dangerous level. If they did not think of a way to release some more money, the consequences would be extremely severe. However, he still said flatteringly, "It'll be fine. With Big Brother's ability, we'll definitely be fine." However, that Zhou Hao really doesn't know how to appreciate favors. Big Brother, you have already spoken. Yet he still refuses to help. Initially, they wanted to indirectly pull the Zhao family to their side by cooperating with Zhou Hao. They wanted to pull Zhao Rixin, the great Buddha, onto their own pirate ship, but unexpectedly, Zhou Hao rejected them immediately. Actually, Zhou Hao's side isn't completely safe. If we work with him, we can get rid of our money in a very short period of time, and the money will flow back very quickly. But the risk is even greater than Li Guangyao's side. It's fine if nothing happens, but once something happens, there's no room for negotiation. Lai Chongqing was startled and asked repeatedly, "Is it that serious? Isn't Zhou Hao's galaxy under the surveillance of your second division? What trouble can there be?" Humph. You're still not convinced when I say you're stupid." General Ji glanced at Zhou Hao. "Do you think that I am the only intelligence agency in the country? Not to mention the 3rd Department and the General Administration's Communication Department. Even the National Security Department had deep connections. Besides, as far as I know, there's an organization I can't afford to offend." Lai Chongqing knew about the 3 departments of General Staff, the National Security Bureau, and the National Intelligence Agency. However, General Ji mentioned that there was another organization that he could not afford to offend. Lai Chongqing was very curious. "There is another intelligence organization in the country?" General Ji nodded slightly. "Yes, there is another organization. Not only in the outside world, but also within the government and the military. Very few people know about the existence of this organization. Although this organization was not very famous, in terms of the ability to gather intelligence and carry out secret missions, the 3 departments of the 2nd Department of General Staff, the General Affairs Liaison Department, and the National Security Department combined were not their match. You should know about the 4 major intelligence agencies in the world: the CIA in the United States, the Federal Security Bureau in Russia, and the original KGB, as well as the MI6 in the United Kingdom and Mossad in Israel. Although I've fought with these intelligence agencies before, the difference between our General Staff Department and theirs is quite obvious." He paused for a moment. General Ji continued, "However, none of the 4 major intelligence agencies in the world have ever suffered under the hands of a mysterious organization in our country, not even knowing who did it." Lai Chongqing was greatly shocked. "So powerful? What organization is it exactly?" "Their name is First Army. It is a secret department that is completely independent of the government and the military. They are directly responsible for Chief Number 1, the Prime Minister, an old man of the Zhao family. It is the highest level sword in the country. Wherever the 3 of them point to, the sword edge will reach." General Ji looked at Lai Chongqing. "Old Lai, you know the intelligence agency of the Ming Dynasty, right? The first one is the Embroidered Uniform Guard, then the East one, and then the West one. However, there is actually another secret intel organization that has no records in history. It is called the Sky Protecting Palace and is directly under the command of the Emperor. With this Sky Protecting Palace, they can take back the control of the East and West factories, the Embroidered Uniform Guard. However, The emperor of the Ming dynasty did not live up to expectations and ended up losing control of the river. And the current First Army was just like the sky-protecting palace back then. General Ji's expression was very serious. Also, the commander of the First Army is a very powerful person. Only Chief Number 1 and the other two know the truth. However, according to my estimation, the commander of the First Army will take over the position of Old Man from the Zhao family in the future. He will help Chief Number 1 and the other two suppress the military like Old Man from the Zhao family. Actually, according to that person's ability, if it wasn't for the fact that military generals can't rule, he might very well become the successor of Chief Number 1. Lai Chongqing felt that his teeth were chattering. The successor of Chief Number 1. If this was in ancient times, he would be the crown prince. Let's get back to the main topic. The galaxy under Zhou Hao is actually under the protection and surveillance of the First Army. General Ji said, if we work with him, we might accidentally provoke the First Army. At that time, I'm afraid that the situation that we've been managing for so many years will be ruined. Lai Chongqing imagined the consequences. If his side was noticed by the crown prince, it would be hard to predict whether the outcome would be good or bad. General Ji leaned back against the back of the chair and said somewhat tiredly, Old Lai, call Wenhua over. Lai Chongqing's expression changed slightly. He knew that although General Ji appeared calm, he was actually very angry with Zhou Hao's refusal. He had called Wenhua over to reduce the fire for himself, because for men, women were the best medicine to reduce the fire. But, Lai Chongqing replied, but his heart was filled with resentment. He thought to himself, if you really think of me as a brother, then you should know that Wenhua is my woman. Friends and wives are not to be bullied. Zhou Hao sat in the car and looked through the window at the red building that looked ordinary from the outside. He could not help but feel a little emotional. This modern wine pool and meat forest, many Fujian and even the high officials in the capital had fallen here and become the gateway to hell. After the Yuanhua case ended, this red building had even been open to the public for a period of time, as a typical material for the anti-corruption and infamy. After returning to the Shengda house, Zhou Hao immediately called Zhao Yuqin. What's wrong, little bad guy? Why are you looking for sister at this late hour? Zhao Yuqin's voice sounded very lazy. She should have climbed up from the bed to answer his call. Zhou Hao could imagine that she was half lying on the bed. Her jade body was so attractive that his heart could not help but heat up. At this time, there was no woman by his side. In order not to make it hard for him to sleep alone at night, Zhou Hao quickly suppressed the fire in his heart and said to Zhao Yuqin, Sister, I saw that person. Do you know Red Building? And? You mean the Red Building of Lai Chongqing, shaman? Where did you go? Zhao Yuqin raised her voice a little. Little pervert, hurry up and call for big sister. Did you do anything bad there? Zhou Hao's forehead instantly broke out in sweat. It seemed that Zhao Yuqin also knew what kind of place the Red Building was, but her attention was obviously focused on whether she had done anything bad in the Red Building. He smiled and said, Of course not. The woman inside was not clean. Why would Zhao Hao do this to himself? Besides, even if they are as pure as ice, they are not comparable to you, sister. Hee, if there is someone who is prettier than you, I might be tempted. But up until now, I have never seen such a person. Zhao Yuqin, who was experienced and knowledgeable, was still delighted by Zhou Hao's sweet words. Bad guy, say all kinds of comforting words. No wonder Rulin and the others' chastity is ruined by you. Zhou Hao felt wronged in his heart. He thought to himself, why did you make me sound like a flower picker? Shaking his head, he threw away these distracting thoughts and returned to the main topic with Zhao Yuqin. Zhao Yuqin asked, the person who asked to meet you is related to Lai Chongqing? Zhou Hao said, yes, that person is old Mr. Ji's son, General Ji of the 2nd Division of General Staff Department. Zhao Yuqin immediately frowned. It's him? Why would he look for you? Our Zhao family has nothing to do with the Ji family. Zhou Hao knew what Zhao Yuqin meant when she said that the Zhao family had nothing to do with the Ji family. After all, Zhao Rixin and that old Mr. Ji were from the same generation. They were both contributors to the establishment of the Republic, so it was impossible that they had nothing to do with each other. The so-called no relationship referred to the fact that the Zhao family and the Ji family weren't on the same side. The Zhao family had formed their own faction in the country. It was a powerful political group. Apart from Zhao Rixin and Zhao Dingzhou, there was also the general commander of the Nanjing military, Zhu Yongquan, and the current commander of the Liberation Army, Lu Zhenwu, who belonged to the faction of the Zhao family. In the government, not only did they want to rise in power and live a peaceful life, they also needed to stand on the side. That was to join a faction. Otherwise, a lone person without a backer could easily become the political sacrifice of others. In the current country, Zhao family could be considered one of the top 3 political groups in the country. The first 2 were. Naturally, they were the first and second chiefs. However, compared to chief number 1 and number 2, the Zhao family seemed to be more stable. Firstly, the Zhao family had taken root very early on. Not to mention the fact that they had assisted the great men during the founding period. It was during the turbulent period of the 60s and 70s. Zhao Rixin, who was now a high-ranking military officer, was smart enough to ask him to step down from the top of the wave. He used the excuse of dismissal as a reason to retreat to the back line and hide his strength. Moreover, Zhao Rixin, who was a master of craftsmanship, had already noticed that Deng Gonggong, who was in a difficult situation, would not fall. So he secretly helped Deng Gonggong a lot. The reason why Deng Gonggong was able to survive that period of time without being harmed by the villains was because Zhao Rixin had contributed a lot. Therefore, after Deng Gong rose up, Zhao Rixin also made a comeback and used his own strength in the military to provide stable support for Deng Gong. Edited by Lifer, Fingerfox Editor, Nyoibo Studio Editor, Nyoibo Studio Editor, Nyoibo Studio. Therefore, Zhao family had truly developed at that time. Another thing was that Zhao Rixin didn't have any ambition for the position of Chief Number 1. Instead, he had always helped Chief Number 1 stabilize the military. Not only would it not arouse suspicion, it would also play a great role in Chief Number 1's governance of the country. With this, after a few changes in leadership, Chief Number 1 would try to rope in Zhao family in advance, just like the current boss who. Just because Zhao Rixin had no intention of becoming the emperor, it had a great effect on the previous leaders. Therefore, after a few changes, the factions of the previous leaders gradually declined, but the Zhao family became more and more stable and powerful. According to Zhao Rixin's age and situation, he could only work for another batch at most. In the end, he would retire with Boss Hu's batch. But this was no longer important, because even if he retired, Zhao Rixin's influence would still remain for a long period of time. Moreover, the second-generation core of Zhao family, Zhao Dingzhou, had already stabilized his position. Within 10 years, he would definitely be able to enter the center. Besides Zhao Dingzhou, Zhou Hao knew that big boss of the First Army, Zhong Zurin, also belonged to the Zhao family. Although it was not confirmed yet, Zhou Hao estimated that Big Boss was at least a lieutenant general. In terms of status, Big Boss was only higher than Zhao Dingzhou, the commander of the military. After Big Boss retired from the position of commander of First Army, he was afraid that Big Boss's power in the center would not be inferior to Zhao Dingzhou. Overall, the Zhao family was a faction. Although it wasn't the number 1 family in the country, it was an indispensable help to the leaders of all the major powers. It was also the target that all the major powers were trying their best to recruit. The reason why Dong Qishan pursued Zhao Yuqin so passionately back then was because the Dong family wanted to use the marriage alliance with the Zhao family to develop themselves. Unfortunately, this wish was ruined by Zhou Hao in the end. Compared to the Zhao family, although the Ji family was a faction that couldn't be underestimated, Old Man Ji had a lot of connections. Almost everyone in the old generation was his old comrades. However, the power and influence of the Ji family was still much weaker than the Zhao family. General Ji also seemed to have boarded the ship of the Zhao family. Initially, the Zhao family also wanted to take in the help of the Zhao family, but because Big Boss, who was in charge of the First Army, was already a member of the Zhao family. If General Ji, a sensitive person who controlled the 2nd Division of General Staff Department, joined Zhao family, then Zhao family would become a big tree and attract the attention of the leaders. The Zhao family was also very particular about their mediocrity. They would not blindly expand their strength to avoid attracting the attention of the leaders. This was also the reason why the Zhao family was able to stay in the center for a long time. Not only General Ji, but those people who were in critical positions in the General Staff Department and the General Office of Communication were not from the Zhao family. Therefore, not only did the Zhao family not accept General Ji, they even deliberately distanced themselves from him. After understanding this point, Zhou Hao felt a lot more relieved. The Zhao family deliberately distanced themselves from the Ji family in order to balance the situation. This was exactly what Zhou Hao wanted. Otherwise, when General Ji was captured and all of the Ji family members were defeated, the Zhao family would have to suffer the unexpected calamity. Sister, do you know what General Ji and Lai Chongqing did? Zhou Hao asked a critical question. Of course I do. That Lai Chongqing was able to monopolize the smuggling business in the southeast coast because his boats were all equipped with the General Staff Department's special credentials. No one dared to stop him. Zhao Yuqin sneered. Zhou Hao said again, Sister, I heard that Big Brother also does business in this area. What is the specific situation? Zhao Yuqin answered truthfully, "There's nothing strange about this. In fact, not only some of the people in Zhao family, but many people from other factions in the military are involved in this. Furthermore, a small number of them were acquiesced by the higher-ups. Because, in order to not let other countries catch evidence, our country has a lot of weapons. All of them need to be sold through this method." Zhou Hao frowned. He knew very well that the Yuan Hua case in his previous life was not only cleaned up by Lai Chongqing and Fu Jian. The whole country had also blown up a strong wind of smuggling. The earthquake had spread from the top of the central government all the way to various places. The entire country had been affected, and both the military and the political world had not been spared. He was afraid that Zhao family would also be affected by this storm. He asked Zhao Yuqin, "Did Big Brother work with Lai Chongqing and the others?" "No. His business mainly lies in Hong Kong and Hainan. He has never been in Fu Jian's business before, and there is no water that doesn't mix with Lai Chongqing's business." Zhou Hao heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Lai Chongqing did not pull him onto the pirate ship, the situation would not be so fast. He said again, "Sister, I feel that the smuggling activities in the country have been rampant recently. I'm afraid the central government will take action soon. How about we try to persuade Big Brother to restrain that business for a bit?" Zhao Yuqin was silent for a moment and said, "Actually, I tried to persuade him in the past. However, Father did not seem to have asked Big Brother to shrink his business. During this period of time, Big Brother had expanded it by quite a bit. Because this is Father's intention, I don't dare to persuade him anymore." Although Zhao Rixin doted on Zhao Yuqin, in terms of proper business, once Zhao Rixin made a decision, even Zhao Dingzhou and Zhao Yuqin would not be able to change it. When Zhou Hao heard Zhao Yuqin's words, the first reaction he had was that Zhao Rixin and Lai Chongqing had already gotten in touch, but after thinking about it, he denied this guess. If that was the case, Lai Chongqing and the others wouldn't need to rope him in like before. As long as Zhao Rixin said a word, he would have to help them unconditionally. Zhou Hao didn't know if Lai Chongqing had been noticed by the central government, but the domestic smuggling activities were much more rampant than before. If this continued, it would be like a balloon that kept expanding. Sooner or later, it would explode. Zhou Hao now knew that the Yuan Hua case that had caused a stir in his previous life should be a trigger, and it would cause the entire country to clean up the smuggling activities. It was impossible for Zhao Rixin not to know about this situation. With his ability, he should know that if Zhao Dingzhou continued to do the business, the Zhao family would definitely be affected by the big cleanup. He frowned and started thinking deeply. Although Zhao Rixin, his godfather, had always been kind to him, he had always regarded him as a family member. However, Zhou Hao knew that Zhao Rixin was definitely an experienced schemer. Otherwise, how could he be so skilled in the undercurrents of politics? He could not be so stupid as to break his own arm. Break his own arm? A flash of inspiration flashed in Zhou Hao's heart. Then, he slowly figured out the true outline of this matter. Zhao Rixin knew that the smuggling activities in the country were getting more and more rampant. Sooner or later, there would be an outbreak, but he didn't make Zhao Dingzhou restrain himself. Instead, he let Zhao Dingzhou expand his business. This was obviously done on purpose. According to Zhou Hao's estimation, Zhao Yuqin said that many people in the country were involved in the smuggling activities. When the Yuan Hua case broke out, a large number of officials would definitely be implicated, especially in the central government. Most of the people were not clean. Some of the smuggling activities were also tacitly approved and supported by the central government. However, these people would not be able to escape. Although those who were strictly dealt with were those who were related to Lai Chongqing, the other officials would have to be punished more or less. If a large number of officials had to be criticized and punished in an environment like this, the Zhao family would be the only one who was good at it. Not only would a large number of officials who were punished become hostile to the Zhao family, but even the leaders would be wary of them. Especially now that it was almost time to change the term, the leaders would inevitably suspect that the Zhao family was so clean. Did they have any other intentions? Although the Zhao family had a deep roots in the country, if they were suppressed by the leaders, the losses would be huge. Therefore, in order to make the leaders feel at ease and prevent the Zhao family from showing off their talents, Zhao Rixin purposely made a mistake. After that, he would involve some of the Zhao group in the cleanup activities, and even sacrifice some unimportant people. He had come to ensure the stability of the Zhao family. This was just like how Zhao Rixin had retreated to the second tier during the turbulent period and concealed his strength. It was the best magic weapon to live in peace. Sometimes, making mistakes was also a form of wisdom, especially in an environment like the political scene where the reef was densely packed. After figuring this out, Zhou Hao could not help but praise Zhao Rixin in his heart for being brilliant. As expected of an old man who had roamed the political world for several decades, he was still far from being comparable to Zhao Rixin. After telling Zhao Yuqin the key, Zhou Hao sighed and said, "Sister, we still have a lot of things to learn from Godfather." Zhao Yuqin also understood the meaning behind Zhao Rixin's actions. In the past, she thought that she was wise and steady, but now she knew that there was still a great distance between her and her father. Since Lai Chongqing had no more problems, Zhou Hao was considering whether he should inform Zhao Rixin about General Ji and let Zhao Rixin be on guard. After all, the betrayal of a key figure like General Ji would cause great harm to the country. However, Zhou Hao wasn't sure if the central government knew about General Ji. If they didn't know about it, he would say that General Ji had betrayed the country. If he wasn't careful, he would be accused of slandering the important members of the country. Moreover, the counterattack of the Ji family couldn't be ignored. If General Ji were to bite back, he and Zhao family would be in trouble. Most importantly, Zhou Hao didn't have any evidence. Should he tell Zhao Rixin that he could predict General Ji's betrayal? After weighing the pros and cons for a long time, Zhou Hao decided to take things one step at a time. At most, he would remind Zhao Rixin to be careful. Zhao Yuqin agreed with Zhou Hao's refusal to cooperate with General Ji and the others. "It's good that you do this. Although you have offended the Ji family, Long and the others won't dare to do anything to you unless they want to suffer the revenge of Zhao family. Besides, the galaxy is the most important property in your hands. Now that it has received the attention of the central government, you can't ruin your future just because of some small profits." Zhou Hao smiled and said, "I know, sister. I know what to do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have rejected them. Sister knows that you are the kind of man who won't make people worry. Sometimes, when you think about it, you really have some doubts. Are you really a 17 or 18-year-old young man? How can you even see through my father, that old fox's purpose?" Zhao Yuqin joked. "Hee, you dare to say that my godfather is an old fox. Next time you see my godfather, don't blame me for suing you." Putting aside the matter of General Ji and Lai Chongqing, Zhou Hao mentioned the World Kung Fu competition that Lei Hu mentioned. Zhao Yuqin was also very curious. "Oh, there is such a thing. I don't know either. It seems to be very exciting and fun." "Huh. Are you planning to take a look at that Underworld King Cup? Then don't you want to stay at Shaman for a few more days? What about Elder Sister? If you're not here, Elder Sister won't be able to continue living." Without waiting for Zhou Hao to say anything, Zhao Yuqin said, "No, I might as well go to Shaman too." "All right, you don't need to stay in that Shengda residences anymore. Anyway, you have already offended the Ji family. Besides, it's not good for me to stay there." Zhou Hao nodded. Zhao Yuqin had been irrigated by Zhou Hao for the past few days and was already sad at night. It was not easy for her to fall asleep. Now that she was suddenly woken up by Zhou Hao, how could she still sleep? Therefore, she planned to rush over to Shaman overnight to reunite with Zhou Hao. She also wanted Zhou Hao to leave the Shengda residences now and get a room in the hotel outside. Zhou Hao didn't agree because Zhao Yuqin had rushed over after he rejected General Ji. General Ji wouldn't believe that this was a private matter between Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin. He would only think that Zhao family wanted to deal with him. If he forced such a special task leader into a corner, Zhou Hao wouldn't be able to guarantee that he wouldn't do anything to him. After Zhou Hao's explanation, Zhao Yuqin also understood this reasoning, so she could only go there tomorrow morning. But before dawn, she could not sleep during this period of time, so she simply made a phone call with Zhou Hao to comfort her. In order to tease Zhou Hao, Zhao Yuqin got up and called Zhou Hao while touching herself. She also deliberately transmitted that mesmerizing moan into Zhou Hao's ear through the phone. With Zhou Hao's current body, if he only relied on the fifth miss without a real person, it would simply be a drop in the bucket. He also hated Zhao Yuqin, this seductive vixen, to the point that his teeth itched. Hearing Zhou Hao gnashing his teeth in anger, Zhao Yuqin laughed even more happily. The next morning, Zhou Hao bid farewell to the housekeeper of the Shengda residences. Anyway, he had nothing much to discuss with General Ji, so he didn't have to worry about anything else. As for Huang Yuan, who was sent by the Poly Group to accompany him, Zhou Hao persuaded him to go back. He was with Zhao Yuqin, so how could he let such a light bulb be a hindrance? After that, Zhou Hao let Lei Hu, who had already settled down at Shaman, meet up with him and pick up Zhao Yuqin at the airport. Not long after, Lei Hu drove an army green Beijing Jeep to pick up Zhou Hao. Zhang Daniyu was also there. What made Zhou Hao depressed was that ever since Zhang Daniyu followed him, for some reason, this young man who was not even 20 years old had developed once again. In the time it took for half a year to grow, his height had increased from 1.7 meters to 1.9 meters. He was half a head taller than Zhou Hao, and his figure had also become much more muscular. His towering pectoral muscles and abdominal muscles would definitely cause a large number of female tiger women to scream. The only thing that remained unchanged was Zhang Daniu's shy and kind personality, as well as his loyalty towards Zhou Hao. Once they got into the car, Zhou Hao snorted at Zhang Daniu. "You're so smart. You even dared to participate in the underground black boxing." In Zhang Daniu's life, besides his mother, the person he feared the most was Zhou Hao. When he heard Zhou Hao scolding, he immediately lowered his head and did not dare to retort. Zhou Hao also knew that Zhang Daniu's greatest hobby was martial arts. It was precisely because of his stubbornness that made him the most suitable person to cultivate the great ox divine fist. He had stepped into the realm of a first-rated warrior at the age of 20. However, the underground boxing competition was both dark and complicated. If Zhang Daniu were to participate alone, he would be eaten by those vicious and cunning drug lords. He didn't even know what was going on. Fortunately, Lei Hu was accompanied by an experienced veteran. Otherwise, Zhou Hao would not allow Zhang Daniu to come into contact with that world. To Zhang Daniu, it was like teaching children how to use both soft and hard methods to have the most effect. Therefore, after scolding Zhang Daniu, Zhou Hao said, "How is it? Did you see any experts inside?" When this was mentioned, Zhang Daniu immediately became excited. He made some gestures and said happily, "Boss, there are really many experts inside. Not only us Chinese, there are also Japanese, Koreans, and Americans. Oh right, there are also experts from Thailand and India, although I don't know any of these guys. They are really very powerful. They are much more powerful than those people who are fighting and wrestling on TV." Zhou Hao curled his lips. Most of the fights and boxing matches on TV were just for show. The so-called experts in the show were just little pawns who knew a little bit about kung fu. How could they be compared with real experts? Lei Hu, who was driving in front, smiled and said, "The contestants who participated in the Underworld King Cup are indeed not weak. However, our big names are not bad either. We have already won one round." "Oh, has the competition begun?" Zhou Hao asked. Lei Hu nodded. "The first round has ended. About half of the contestants have been eliminated. Dinyo's first opponent is a Korean. Taekwondo is very powerful. However, in less than 5 minutes, Dinyo crippled both of his legs." Zhou Hao was a little speechless. One must know that the most important thing in Taekwondo was leg skills. That Korean's legs were crippled. Even if his martial arts were crippled, Zhang Daniu was really ruthless. Seeing Zhou Hao's expression through the mirror, Lei Hu smiled and said, "Boss, don't worry. Every contestant signed a life and death contract when they signed up. Once they go on stage, they will not have any grudges. However, being defeated and being beaten to death, although both are defeated, the odds are different." Zhang Daniu also muttered, "I originally thought that guy was quite powerful, but in the end, his legs suddenly broke after 2 punches." Zhou Hao patted his firm shoulder and smiled. "You don't have to blame yourself. Those Koreans are arrogant. Not to mention crippling his legs. Even if he killed them, he would just kill them. There's nothing to be pitted about." After saying that, he turned to Lei Hu and asked, "Dinyo won. You must have won the money as well." "The boss is the boss." "How wise." Lei Hu smiled. As Dinyo is participating in the Underworld King Cup for the first time, no one in the underground world knows who he is. On the contrary, that Korean is quite famous. Hence, Dinyo's odds are as high as 1.75. I bet 180,000 on Dinyo. That's why I won about 2 million. Zhang Daniu immediately shouted, "Brother Hu, so you bet on me? Why didn't you tell me?" "I don't care. You will give me half of the money." Although he was shy in his discussion, it didn't mean he was stupid. Lei Hu used him to win the money, so he would definitely get some. Zhou Hao and Lei Hu laughed loudly. Lei Hu also smiled slyly. "I originally planned to split half of it with you, but I forgot to tell you in a short period of time. Brother Hu, you were lying. That was how you coaxed me last time, saying that you would treat me to dog meat. It's almost summer, and you haven't fulfilled your promise yet." Zhang Daniu said with a flushed face. Zhou Hao once again laughed loudly. Lei Hu and Zhang Daniu's pair really had the taste of living treasures. After a while, they arrived at the airport. Once they entered, Zhou Hao saw Zhao Yuqin, who was as bright as a pearl in the crowd. Even though Zhao Yuqin deliberately wore a pair of sunglasses to cover most of her face, her graceful figure still stood out among the crowd. Zhou Hao could see her at a glance. Seeing Zhou Hao, Zhao Yuqin's smile bloomed. She walked over quickly in high heels and grabbed Zhou Hao's arm, causing the surrounding men who were attracted by Zhao Yuqin to turn red with envy. Zhou Hao was already used to this kind of gaze. He accompanied Zhao Yuqin and left the airport. Daniel, I haven't seen you for a while. Why are you high again? In the car, Zhao Yuqin clicked her tongue in wonder when she saw Zhang Daniu's head touching the roof of the car. Zhang Daniu scratched his head and said shyly, I don't know either, but my mom said that it is always good to be taller. Because when you have strength, you can help the boss do more things. You can repay the boss for his kindness to our family. Zhao Yuqin rolled her eyes at Zhou Hao and smiled. Look at you. Daniel has become your slave. Before Zhou Hao could defend himself, Zhang Daniu became anxious. He anxiously said to Zhao Yuqin, Big sister, it is not like this. The boss never treated me as a slave. Just like what my mom said, the boss is our family's great benefactor. If it wasn't for the boss, my mom would have died of illness. We are truly grateful to the boss. Daniel wants to work for the boss for the rest of his life. Zhang Daniu was a straightforward person. Even though Zhao Yuqin was Zhou Hao's intimate woman, he did not allow her to say anything bad about Zhou Hao. Of course, Zhao Yuqin was not angry. Instead, she was happy that Zhou Hao had found such a loyal subordinate. In order to participate in the Underworld King Cup, Lei Hu booked a room at a 5-star hotel in Xiamen. He stayed with Zhang Daniu to teach Zhang Daniu some combat experience. Although Zhang Daniu's martial arts was much higher than Lei Hu's, when it came to combat experience, Zhang Daniu was not Lei Hu's match. If the two of them fought with their lives on the line, even if Zhang Daniu could kill Lei Hu, he would still be seriously injured. After Zhou Hao left the Shangda residences, Lei Hu booked the highest-grade presidential suite for Zhou Hao. The second round of the Underworld King Cup would start tomorrow, so Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin played around in Xiamen. Lei Hu and Zhang Daniu stayed in the hotel to prepare for tomorrow's competition. Lei Hu had become Zhang Daniu's competition coach. Maybe it was because of the Underworld King Cup. Zhou Hao found that he had seen a lot of foreigner in Xiamen, not just white and black people from developed countries like the United States and England, but also some Jews and even covered their heads with Indians. After walking around Xiamen, Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin returned to the hotel. That night, the two of them naturally stayed in the presidential suite to enjoy themselves. Zhou Hao had been holding back his anger when Zhao Yuqin teased him on the phone last night. Now, he was going all out on Zhao Yuqin, causing her to beg for mercy. And it was to prevent Zhao Yuqin from looking at the Underworld King Cup because she was too weak to look at it tomorrow. Zhou Hao let her go for the time being. The next day, Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin woke up early. Just as they finished washing up, Lei Hu knocked on the door. After that, the four of them went to the restaurant downstairs to have a rich and delicious breakfast. Zhou Hao saw that Zhang Daniu was full of energy and confidence. Obviously, he was full of confidence in this round of competition. It was not up to Zhang Daniu to be so confident. In terms of inner energy and martial arts, Zhang Daniu was more powerful than Li Shuihan, who was a first-class master. However, he was much weaker in terms of agility and agility. Zhang Daniu's fighting style was that of one who could defeat 10 opponents with one force. Zhou Hao had seen the video of him fighting the Korean in the first round. The Korean was indeed very accomplished in Taekwondo. Not only was his 2 legs powerful, but his speed was also astonishing. He could kick 7 or 8 times in a second. If it was an ordinary person, they would not be able to do anything under his whip-like leg technique. However, Zhang Daniu's Divine Ox Punch was the ultimate technique of Shaolin Temple, the 13 Tycoons. Its strength was incomparable to ordinary people. The strength of one's physical body was also not something that an ordinary person could imagine. Although it was not as strong as Zhou Hao's, Zhang Daniu could still easily withstand bullets when he circulated the genuine aura to protect his entire body. Facing the Korean's swift leg, Zhang Daniu took a few kicks from him and found an opportunity to grab his leg. With 2 punches, the Korean's leg was broken by Zhang Daniu just like that. The venue for the Underworld King Cup was located in the outskirts of Xiamen. It was located far away from the city. There were only a few small villages around it. According to Lei Hu, this spacious underground arena that could accommodate thousands of people was actually an abandoned large bomb shelter. It was specially built by the military to guard against the missile gaps in Taiwan. Later, it was abandoned because of the change in the military arrangements in this area. However, even if the bomb shelter of this scale was abandoned, it would still be controlled by the military. The organizer must have had a good relationship with the military to be able to use that place as the venue for the competition. Xiamen was also under the jurisdiction of the Guangzhou military. As the leader of the military, Zhao Dingzhou definitely knew about the Underworld King Cup. When Zhao Yuqin heard Lei Hu say that the venue was most likely an abandoned bomb shelter, she immediately thought of the relationship between Zhao Dingzhou and this matter. She complained, "Big brother is too dishonest. He didn't even let me know about such an interesting competition. When we go back, We must find him to settle the score. Zhou Hao thought more than Zhao Yuqin. If this Underworld King Cup had something to do with Zhao Dingzhou, Old Master Zhao would definitely know about it. Even the central government knew about the details. Otherwise, if the Underworld King Cup was a private event, how could the mafia leaders and drug lords who came to China to watch the competition escape from the spies of China? Wouldn't that make the First Army as insignificant as nothing? Zhou Hao narrowed his eyes and thought, could it be that even the military sent people to participate in this Underworld King Cup? If the Underworld King Cup in China was tacitly approved by the central government, then the government of the previous organizations would have sent people to participate in this Underworld King Cup. Was it also related to the Underworld King Cup? According to this train of thought, Zhou Hao got a shocking speculation. Some of the contestants representing the mafia or drug cartel were most likely sent by the governments of various countries to participate in the competition through the forces of the underground world. And this Underworld King Cup World Combat Sports Competition was actually a competition between individual soldiers from various countries. Actually, there was also an international special forces competition in reality, but Zhou Hao was clear that those competitions were too political and enjoyable and would not truly reflect the fighting abilities of the soldiers from various countries. On the contrary, in such a cruel underground boxing competition like the Underworld King Cup, the principle of not having a political goal and only wanting to win could make the people from various countries let go of their hands and feet. Besides, each country could also invite those experts who did not serve in the army. For example, in China, many martial arts experts were not active soldiers. Without a political goal, each country could compete for the ranking in this competition to their heart's content. As it was a bare-handed battle and they did not pay attention to weapons and equipment, a superpower like the United States did not have much of an advantage. Instead, it was those countries with a long martial arts culture that were able to showcase their skills. So there are so many hidden secrets in such an underground boxing match. Zhou Hao sighed. In his heart, he was even more curious and expectant of this Underworld King Cup. Soon, Zhou Hao and the others arrived at the venue where the Underworld King Cup was held. It was at the foot of a small mountain. There was actually a very large golf course as a cover. If it was someone who did not know the background, who would have thought that there would be an enormous bomb shelter underneath the golf course? The existence of this golf course also made Zhou Hao even more certain of his guess. If it wasn't for the official support, how could those people make the facilities so perfect? Moreover, the terrain here was not suitable to build a golf course. Those who had some business knowledge would not throw money here. The reason why they did this was because they could hide the existence of the bomb shelter. On the other hand, real golf enthusiasts would not choose to play here, which would avoid the risk of being exposed in the underground boxing match. It was also because the golf course was a place of high spending. Thus, when those mafia leaders and drug dealers' luxury cars were parked here, it wouldn't arouse suspicion. When he arrived at the gate, Zhou Hao found that the guards in the security uniform were well-trained troops. There were watchtowers on the stone platforms on both sides of the gate. Zhou Hao estimated that the watchtower must have heavy weapons. Now you say that the Underworld King Cup wasn't approved by the officials. I don't believe it either. Zhou Hao turned his head and smiled at Zhao Yuqin. Zhao Yuqin said hatefully, when we go back, we must get even with brother. We still don't know how much money he earned from gambling at the periphery of this Underworld King Cup. Zhou Hao laughed. I estimate that most of the money will have to be handed over. Even if only a small portion is left, it will still be an astronomical figure. Zhao Yuqin said, to think that guy often cries poverty with me and wants me to ask Tianhe to donate some money to their military district to support their military industry development. Why didn't I know about this? Zhou Hao did not know whether to laugh or cry. Brother, this is too dishonest. He is clearly using his own people to attack us. Are you not going to eat him? I think Big Brother is quite steady as well. Why did he do such a thing? Oh right. Why didn't I know about this? Zhao Yuqin smiled and said, he knew that you would definitely not agree to find you, so he came to find my connections. Speaking up to this point, Zhao Yuqin leaned on Zhou Hao's shoulder and smiled charmingly. But why would elder sister joke about your assets? Not to mention my brother, even if my father asked, I would not agree. Zhou Hao naturally knew that Zhao Dingzhou was most likely joking. He was definitely not a person who did not know what was important and what was important. However, what Zhao Yuqin said made Zhou Hao very happy. His right hand unconsciously touched her slender waist. Lei Hu and Zhang Daniu, who were in front of them, consciously looked away, as if they could not see what was happening behind them. Please show me your membership card. A cold voice came from outside the car. It was the security guard at the door. Lei Hu did not say anything. He just handed a black metal card to the security guard. The security guard took out an instrument and put it on the card. He looked at the sign on the instrument, then nodded at Lei Hu and let them in. Zhou Hao nodded secretly. Those membership cards were clearly identified through precise instruments, greatly reducing the possibility of outsiders mixing in. It seemed that the security work here was still very good. It really did resemble a formal military base. After passing through the gate, there were a few more checkpoints in the future. The purpose was to prevent customers from bringing dangerous items to the venue. As Zhou Hao expected, there were many luxury cars parked in the parking lot. Some of them were not listed in China yet, and were just like an international car exhibition. It made their modified but ordinary-looking Beijing Jeep seem very shabby. After getting out of the car, there was a special waiter who brought Zhou Hao and the others in. They went through an elevator that was installed in a golf club and went deep into the underground shelter. Along the way, Zhou Hao and the others also saw other guests. There were people from all kinds of countries and different ethnic groups. Zhou Hao also knew that none of these people were good men and women. This bomb shelter that acted as the venue was really huge. It was like an international standard football field, and it was separated into different areas. For example, the home stadium, the players' resting time, the audience lounge, and so on. All kinds of equipment were very perfect, like a real sports field. If they hadn't seen the ceiling above, they wouldn't have thought that this place was an air raid shelter. This place was more than 20 meters deep into the ground, and there was a thick layer of rock that separated it from the ground. Unless it was a missile, it would be very difficult to break in. Moreover, the ventilation equipment here was very complete, so the people inside did not feel stuffy at all. Do you know about Denyo's opponent later? Zhou Hao asked Lei Hu. Lei Hu shook his head. No one knows who the opponent is before the competition starts. It was decided by drawing lots when the competition started. I saw it in the first round of the competition. It was used to stir the beads to draw lots. The possibility of cheating was not high. Furthermore, none of those contestants are weak. Cheating doesn't mean much. Zhou Hao smiled and asked, there are also specialized judges. Who are they? I don't know either. They just look like some elders of the association. Anyway, I don't know them. Lei Hu said. When they entered the venue, they saw that it was very lively. Guests from all over the world and service staff made it look like a festival. Zhou Hao also noticed that most of those people had female companions. There were all kinds of people, and there were even some men dragging a few women. However, unlike Zhao Yuqin, those young and beautiful women were clearly just toys for others. Everyone, please follow me. Your seats are over there. A female servant wearing a plain cheongsam greeted Zhou Hao and the others politely. Zhang Daniyu followed the waitress and looked around. He looked very excited. I didn't expect to see a beauty of this quality here. It was a male voice, and it spoke in English with a deliberately constructed British accent. Although it was very fluent, it gave people a strange feeling. Zhou Hao looked in the direction of the voice and saw a man in a gray suit standing there. Beside him was a tall and sexy beauty holding his hand. Clearly, she was his female companion. Behind the two of them was a bald man with a medium build. He had a pair of bean-like eyes that kept turning and turning. When Zhou Hao saw this man, he suddenly felt that his face was somewhat familiar, and he quickly recognized him. It wasn't that Zhou Hao knew this man, but that he had seen him on television in his previous life. In addition, he had been in a confrontation with the Li family and Tim Aston during this period of time, which made Zhou Hao pay more attention to the people of the Li family. That was why he immediately recognized this man. This handsome young man was Li Guangyao's eldest son, Li Xianlong. He was also the future Prime Minister of Singapore and the second-generation leader of the Li family. However, the current Li Xianlong was clearly much younger than the one Zhou Hao had seen in his previous life. The current Li Xianlong should be around the age of Zhou Hao. However, Zhou Hao saw that his lips were red and his teeth were white as if he was in his 30s. He was very compatible with the sexy beauty beside him, who was at most 30 years old. Putting aside the impression he had of this person in his previous life, after the previous confrontation with the Li clan and hearing Li Xianlong speak English in English, Zhou Hao's impression of this person was extremely disgusted. Li Xianlong clearly did not care about Zhou Hao's eyes that were filled with hostility. Instead, he arrogantly laid his eyes on Zhao Yuqin and kept making tisk-tiske sounds, as if he was looking at a high-end product that he liked. In fact, the girl wearing a long dress with exposed back next to Li Xianlong was also an outstanding beauty. However, she was still far inferior to Zhao Yuqin, who was a beauty that could bring disaster to the world. It was no wonder that Li Xianlong would perform in such a way. However, Zhou Hao looked at Li Xianlong with extreme disdain, thinking that this was the Li clan's second-generation leader. This was the future Prime Minister of Singapore. In his previous life, It was a miracle that Singapore did not perish under his hands. Or could it be that in this underground world that was not open to the public, he could reveal his true colors in peace? Li Xianlong walked straight to Zhou Hao and the others and smiled like a gentleman, but the words he said were not gentlemanly at all. Sir, could this be the famous female star in China? How beautiful. Can you cut off your love and give her to me? I'll exchange this with you for $1 million, okay? He spoke these words in English, but other than Zhang Daniu, Zhou Hao and the other two could understand. Zhou Hao was thinking in his heart, if he found an opportunity to kill this Li Xianlong without anyone noticing, what would the Li family's reaction be? Would the relationship between Singapore and China be affected? Zhao Yuqin, who was completely treated as an item by Li Xianlong, took a step forward and gave Li Xianlong a loud slap. She then took out a wet towel and wiped her hands. She deliberately said in English, "My hands are really dirty." Zhao Yuqin's actions scared Li Xianlong and the woman beside him. Li Xianlong even forgot to scream in pain. The bald man behind them had intended to stop Zhao Yuqin when she took a step forward and raised his hand. However, before he could move, he felt a cold gaze locking onto him. Then, he raised his head to meet Zhou Hao's sparkling eyes. Instantly, his mind was shaken. It was as if he was tied up by invisible chains and could not move at all. It also allowed Zhao Yuqin to smoothly slap Li Xianlong. The commotion here attracted the attention of the people around, but those people were all ferocious and had no intention of intervening. They just watched the show with interest. Li Xianlong touched his face in a daze. He felt a burning pain on his face. Then, he looked at Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin in shock. Until now, he still couldn't believe that he was slapped by Zhao Yuqin in front of so many people. The sexy woman beside him was also stunned, but she covered her mouth and didn't make a sound because she knew that she had come here. None of them were ordinary people. She couldn't afford to offend Li Xianlong, but she couldn't afford to offend anyone else. However, Li Xianlong did not behave like the average person. After being humiliated, he made a big fuss. Instead, he took a few deep breaths. Then, his eyes narrowed. The cold light emitted from the slits of his eyes made people feel a chill down their spines. To Zhou Hao's surprise, Li Xianlong showed a smile and even extended his hand to Zhou Hao. "I apologize for my rudeness. I have yet to ask for your name." He spoke in English. Even Zhou Hao did not expect Li Xianlong to have such a reaction. If Li Xianlong made a big fuss and even pulled out his gun on the spot, Zhou Hao would not be surprised. But Li Xianlong shook his hand as if nothing had happened. This was out of his expectation. Although he was surprised, Zhou Hao didn't intend to befriend Li Xianlong. He said coldly in English, "Sorry, I don't understand English." Then, he ignored Li Xianlong and the others and left with Zhao Yuqin. Li Xianlong narrowed his eyes and stared at Zhou Hao and the others' backs. The smile on his face became stronger and stronger. The bald man behind him hesitated and said, "Young master, this person?" Li Xianlong raised his hand and stopped him from saying anything. He smiled and said, "There are experts among those people, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have let that woman touch me." The bald man was shocked. He immediately lowered his head and said respectfully, "Young master, I am useless." However, there was indeed an expert inside. Just now, this subordinate's vital energy had been locked down. If he acted rashly, it might cause that person to kill him. "Young master, those people are so arrogant. Do you want to mobilize our men?" Xianlong shook his head. "Forget it. This is China, and I am the son of the Singapore Prime Minister. My identity is sensitive, and if there is any problem, it will easily become an international storm. However, you go and find General Ji. He is the head of China's military intelligence department, so he should be able to find out who that guy is. When I come to China next time, humph humph." His gaze landed on Zhao Yuqin swaying back, and Li Xianlong's hand was placed on the butt of the woman beside him as he pinched. The woman was in unbearable pain, but she did not dare to make a sound. She could only grit her teeth and endure it. Li Xianlong said in a gloomy voice, "And that woman too, investigate clearly. Humph, humph. I can even marry the woman that Trash Li Xianying likes. There's no woman that I, Li Xianlong, can't get because I like her." "Got it, eldest young master," the bald man replied respectfully. "Xiao Hao, do you know that guy just now?" Zhao Yuqin asked Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao said, "I don't know him. I just know him. He is Li Guangyao's eldest son, Li Xianlong. If nothing unexpected happens, will he inherit Li Guangyao and become the Prime Minister of Singapore in the future?" Zhao Yuqin was surprised. That guy is Li Guangyao's eldest son, and will be in charge of the Li family in the future? She really found it hard to believe, because in her eyes, The son of such a person should not be like the son of an ordinary rich second generation. If he really let someone like Li Xianlong manage it in the future, then the future of Singapore would be bleak. Zhou Hao smiled. Actually, that guy is not bad. It is beyond my expectation that he can quickly regain his calm after such an encounter. However, did the government know why Li Xianlong came to China? Also, did he come here to represent Singapore to participate in the Underworld King Cup? Zhao Yuqin shrugged her shoulders. I don't know either. But according to what I know, there seems to be no official visiting our country during this period of time. That Li Xianlong should have come secretly. If this Underworld King Cup is the official tacitly approved, then the central government should know that Li Xianlong came here. At this point, Zhao Yuqin sneered. It's just that I am curious, in a small place like Singapore, what kind of expert could be produced. Their economy is not bad, but when it comes to military strength and individual quality, they are also a laughingstock. Sister, don't look down on them so much. Our national football team will also invite external help. Zhou Hao's words also made Zhao Yuqin and Lei Hu laugh continuously. When Zhou Hao came to the arrangement of the organizers, he found that the audience seats here were very well designed. The seats were spacious and comfortable, and there were 5 people in a group. There was a distance between the group and the group, giving each person a relatively free space. The thousands of seats were built around the circular arena in the middle. The circular arena in the middle was 100 square meters. The ground was paved with solid wood, but there were no railings or anything like that on the outside. No one knew what they would use to separate the contestants and the audience during the competition. Zhou Hao also saw the judges. There were all kinds of people, but they were all of a certain age. Although he didn't know them, he could guess that the judges were probably elders from underground forces. Boss, look at that guy over there. Zhang Daniu suddenly pointed at the man sitting in another seat in the distance. Zhou Hao followed the direction Zhang Daniu pointed and saw an Indian man sitting cross-legged on the seat. He was about 40 years old and was wearing a dark yellow robe that looked like a llama robe. There was also a white belt tied to his head. The Indian had dark skin and a tall nose. Its eyes were closed and its hands were placed on its legs as if it was deep in thought. You know that person? Zhou Hao asked Zhang Daniu. Zhang Daniu shook his head. No, but I have seen him in the first round. His opponent seemed to be an expert in Brazilian judo. He was beaten to death in less than 2 minutes. Zhou Hao frowned. Looking at the peaceful Indian with its eyes closed, he thought that he would be an eminent monk or something. But he did not expect that he would be so ruthless in the competition. He asked Zhang Daniu, what kind of martial arts did he use? I don't know either. I have never seen it before. It looks very strange and awkward, but that Brazilian expert couldn't stop it. Even his head was blown up. Zhang Daniu's expression was somewhat serious. Lei Hu, who was beside him, said, that Indian's move is very tricky and ruthless. I think it has some traces of Indian yoga. Zhou Hao observed the Indian even more closely, but he did not notice any signs of the genuine aura flowing on his body. However, his intuition told him that the Indian was not simple. There were a few people sitting beside the Indian. It was another Indian man and 2 golden-haired beauties. That Indian man was much younger. He had a delicate beard. He was also wearing a luxurious suit embroidered with gold threads, looking like an Indian noble. He was hugging the 2 blonde-haired beauties and laughing heartily. Perhaps it was because he sensed Zhou Hao's gaze. The Indian expert sitting cross-legged suddenly opened his eyes and looked over. Zhou Hao paused for a moment, but he didn't hesitate to meet his gaze. Both of their eyes collided in the air. The man seemed to have sensed Zhou Hao's unusual behavior. There was some surprise in his eyes, but it quickly calmed down. He was like a Buddha statue, not affected by anything around him. That's an expert, Zhou Hao suddenly said. At least he's not weaker than Big Ox. Lei Hu was also surprised when he heard Zhou Hao's words, because he knew very well how strong Zhang Daniu was. There's no need to be surprised about this. India is one of the 4 ancient civilizations, and its martial arts has been developing for a very long time. Zhou Hao said. At this time, a female attendant walked over and politely said to Zhou Hao and the others, everyone, the competition is about to begin. Participants, please draw lots over there. Zhang Daniu looked at Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao nodded at him. He then followed the female attendant to the judge's side to draw lots. There were also other competitors around. There were about 50 to 60 people. The drawing machine was something similar to a 6-color stirring ball. The balls representing each contestant were stirred inside, and then the random draw would determine the opponents and the number of matches. The result of the draw would also be displayed on the monitor at the back. Zhang Daniu's number was 9. The result of his draw was soon displayed on the monitor. It was the first match, and his opponent was a person called Dongfang Yi. After that, a waiter handed an introduction book to Zhou Hao and the others. The information and odds of each contestant were recorded on it. Zhou Hao also saw that the person called Dongfang Yi was from Singapore. He represented a triad organization called Red Lotus Gang in Thailand. The odds were 1 to 2. Zhang Daniu was 1, 3. Singapore? Zhou Hao sneered and looked up. Sure enough, he saw someone looking at him from afar. It was Li Xianlong, this Dongfang Yi. It was obvious that this was the contestant sent by Li Xianlong. To think that he would be matched with Zhang Daniu. It seemed like enemies were bound to cross paths. The female servant faced Zhou Hao and asked, "May I ask if sir wants to place the bet?" Zhou Hao smiled. "Yes, of course I want to bet. I'll bet 10 million on Zhang Daniu, number 9. The female attendant was shocked, then politely reminded, "Sir, we use US dollars here." "Oh, I thought it was pounds." Zhou Hao smiled and handed his credit card to her, asking her to board the plane and bet. $10 million wasn't a lot for the tycoons in the venue. Some people even bet as much as $100 million on every round of the competition. However, those big clients who bet more than $1 million had long been recorded by the organizers. They had their subordinates carefully serve them. The female attendant had never seen Zhou Hao in the relevant records. It was unknown where he had come from. Zhao Yuqin and Lei Hu did not show any reaction to Zhou Hao's actions. After all, $10 million was nothing compared to Zhou Hao's wealth. Zhang Daniu saw how confident Zhou Hao was in himself and secretly swore in his heart that he would not let his boss down. Zhou Hao saw that Li Xianlong was also betting on the opposite side. He looked at the waiter and said something to him from time to time. He was probably asking how much Zhou Hao had bet on. Zhou Hao knew that the Li family controlled a few times more funds than he did, so Li Xianlong naturally had a lot of confidence. However, after reincarnating as a human, Zhou Hao had never lost in terms of gambling. Very soon, some staff members came over to take Zhang Daniu to prepare for the competition. Zhou Hao nodded his head as encouragement to Zhang Daniu. Zhang Daniu also knew that his opponent this time was Li Xianlong's men, so he said to Zhou Hao, "Boss, don't worry. I will definitely beat that guy down and let out a sigh of relief for you and Big Sister." After both contestants were prepared, a man in a tuxedo appeared in the center of the circular competition field. He laughed loudly to the audience through the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to today's second elimination round of the Underworld King Cup World Combat Sports Competition." The audience that had been waiting for a long time immediately erupted into enthusiastic cheers. Towards this kind of live and real hand-to-hand combat, the bloodiness and cruelty were enough to arouse the thirst for blood and violence in the hearts of these people. In this underground bomb shelter that was filled with cheers, Zhou Hao felt that this place really wanted to see the bloody and brutal Colosseum in ancient Rome. After the host gave a long opening speech, he said, "All right, let me introduce the two contestants for today's first match. They are the representatives of the Red Lotus Gang, and they are Dongfang Yi, the saw blade from Singapore." A spotlight was shot to the left side of the field, and a small round hole appeared there. Then, the man called Dongfang Yi slowly appeared on the field through the lift. Dongfang Yi was wearing a black sportswear. He wasn't tall, but his expression was extremely cold. There was a cross-shaped scar on his left cheek. When they saw Dongfang Yi appear, the audience immediately burst into loud cheers. Next is the representative of Pluto, the Iron Fist, Zhang Daniu from China. The host shouted again. Under his shout, Zhang Daniu slowly appeared from the lift and attracted a lot of cheers. "When did Daniu get the nickname Iron Fist?" Zhou Hao asked Lei Hu in amusement. Lei Hu shrugged and said, "The organizers just randomly changed it, just like those horse racing competitions." However, Daniu is quite satisfied with this nickname. After introducing both parties, the host left. Zhang Daniu and Dongfang Yi also walked onto the stage. At this time, a circular glass cover slowly fell from the ceiling and landed on the ground. It just happened to surround the arena, isolating the contestants from the audience and allowing the audience to clearly see the situation of the match. Zhou Hao looked at the transparent glass cover. "Huh, that is tempered glass?" Lei Hu explained, "That is not ordinary tempered glass. It should be made from carbon fiber nanometers newly developed by the military. It is more than 10 times harder and more flexible than ordinary tempered glass. It is specially used in aerospace." Zhou Hao shook his head with a bitter smile. This glass cover was actually made from the latest technology of the military. Zhou Hao would never believe that this Underworld King Cup had nothing to do with the military. The competition did not have a time limit. One side had to admit defeat or completely lose their ability to fight. Zhang Daniyu cupped his fists at Dongfang Yi as a greeting. Dongfang Yi also nodded slightly at him. After that, the competition officially began. Zhang Daniyu had always been a straightforward person. Since the competition had begun, he didn't say much and directly used the starting stance of the Divine Ox Punch to attack Dongfang Yi. The moves of the Divine Ox Punch were not complicated and could not be described as exquisite. It was a bold and straightforward move that walked the Gangyang path. However, this 13 Guardians practicing unhindered was originally a move that relied on strength to win. The simpler the moves were, the more powerful they would be. This was especially true for someone like Zhang Daniyu, who had a pure personality and had no distracting thoughts. He would be able to cultivate it with twice the result with half the effort. Although there was a carbon fiber cover between them, Zhou Hao could still see that Zhang Daniyu's fist caused ripples in the air. It seemed like Zhang Daniyu also knew that his opponent wasn't simple, so he didn't hold back when he attacked. As the saying goes, an expert would know if he was an expert when he attacked. Dongfang Yi knew that he had encountered a troublesome opponent when he saw Zhang Daniyu's attack. Facing Zhang Daniyu's fist that was accompanied by the sound of air being torn apart, Dongfang Yi's expression changed slightly. He dodged swiftly and landed a few meters away. He lowered his head and looked at his shirt. It turned out that he had dodged the attack. However, the underside of his shirt was cut open by Zhang Daniyu's fist wind, and a crack appeared. His facial expression changed again, and then he stared at Zhang Daniyu. The chi on his body had also become serious. When Zhang Daniyu attacked again, he saw Dongfang Yi attacking with both hands, and he instantly turned into an afterimage. Zhang Daniyu didn't have any intention of dodging. He continued to rush forward while facing Dongfang Yi's attack. Anyway, his true chi was circulating around his body, and he was indeed invulnerable. However, Zhang Daniyu suddenly felt a tingling sensation in his chest. He discovered that his shirt had been torn to an unsightly extent, and his upper body was naked. What shocked Zhang Daniyu the most was that there were 2 finger holes on his chest, and blood was gushing out. This Dongfang Yi had actually broken his protective genuine aura and injured him. Although the injury wasn't deep, it had already shocked Zhang Daniyu. He looked up at Dongfang Yi and saw a cold smile on his face. He even stuck out his tongue and licked the blood that belonged to Zhang Daniyu. Outside, Zhou Hao's expression became serious. He muttered to himself that Dongfang Yi is an expert that cannot be underestimated. Lei Hu also said, "Look at his moves. They are similar to the evil snake fist of Yun Gui's region." To be able to break Danyo's protective genuine aura, this fellow's martial arts is really high. "Xiao Hao, will Danyo be all right?" Zhao Yuqin asked worriedly. Zhou Hao patted her hand. "Don't worry, sister. Although Dongfang Yi's martial arts is not bad, he is still unable to defeat Danyo." Sure enough, after being injured by Dongfang Yi, and seeing his provocative actions, as well as the fact that he was Li Xinlong's subordinate, Zhang Daniyu immediately became furious. Zhang Daniyu had a simple nature, and was used to being straightforward. It was precisely because of this that he was easily angered, especially when the enemy was Zhou Hao's enemy. He roared furiously and ripped off his torn shirt, revealing his muscular upper body. Moreover, there was a faint golden chi circulating on his dark skin, making him look like a golden Buddha. This scene caused the audience to cheer continuously, cheering for Zhang Daniyu and Dongfang Yi. Clenching his fists, Zhang Daniyu once again threw himself at Dongfang Yi. His shy face looked fierce and ferocious. Facing Zhang Daniyu, who looked like an enraged beast, Dongfang Yi sneered. He deliberately provoked Zhang Daniyu because he knew his inner energy was not as good as his opponent's. Only by making his opponent lose his mind would he have a higher chance of winning. Dongfang Yi's inner energy was indeed inferior to Zhang Daniyu's, but his speed and agility were far superior to Zhang Daniyu's. Under Zhang Daniyu's storm-like attacks, Dongfang Yi dodged left and right. He was like a loach that could not be caught, and he would occasionally strike back at Zhang Daniyu a few times. Although it could only cause some superficial wounds to Zhang Daniyu, it also caused Zhang Daniyu's anger to expand continuously. In fact, Dongfang Yi also had his own complaints. The furious Zhang Daniyu's body was much tougher than before. Even if he could hurt Zhang Daniyu, Dongfang Yi's hand would still be hurt and numb by the genuine aura. When Zhang Daniyu attacked, the force from his attack caused Dongfang Yi's face to hurt and his body to become unstable. He was almost caught by Zhang Daniyu several times. However, the hard work paid off. Under this kind of delaying tactic, Zhang Daniyu finally showed signs of fatigue. He felt that Zhang Daniyu's energy was no longer as fierce as before. Dongfang Yi was overjoyed. His eyes sparkled. When he grabbed Zhang Daniyu and used the same technique, His right hand shot out like lightning and struck the back of Zhang Daniu's neck. Receiving this attack, Zhang Daniu violently shook. After that, he directly fell forward. Seeing this scene, Lei Hu and Zhao Yuqin couldn't help but stand up. Zhou Hao, on the other hand, was very calm. He looked towards Li Xianlong and saw that Li Xianlong was smiling brightly at him. He even raised his wine cup to greet him. Those who had bet on Dongfang Yi immediately cried out excitedly. Those who had bet on Zhang Daniu angrily shouted for Zhang Daniu to fight again. As Zhang Daniu did not take the initiative to admit defeat, the referees outside were still making sure that he had completely lost his ability to fight. Therefore, Dongfang Yi took this opportunity to walk to Zhang Daniu's side. He raised his hand and wanted to give Zhang Daniu a final blow. Xiao Hao, go and save Daniu. Zhao Yuqin shouted at Zhou Hao. At this moment, Zhang Daniu, who was lying on the ground and could not move, suddenly turned around and grabbed Dongfang Yi's hand. He even had a silly smile on his face. I finally caught you. Dongfang Yi wasn't the only one who was shocked. The spectators were also shocked by Zhang Daniu's resurrection, but immediately, those who had bet on Zhang Daniu started to cheer crazily. Zhao Yuqin and Lei Hu, who had thought that Zhang Daniu was in imminent danger, also stared blankly at the situation in the hall. They let out a long sigh. Seeing Zhou Hao, who had been sitting on the chair without a trace of panic since the beginning, Zhao Yuqin could not help pinching his ear. You knew that Daniu would be fine? Why didn't you tell elder sister and wanted to see elder sister make a fool of herself? Zhou Hao smiled and said, I know that Daniu is fine now. However, he did not dare to confirm his intentions. Thus, I want to see what he wants to do. However, it's true that Daniu is very smart. Indeed, Dongfang Yi's light body technique was superb and agile. It would be very difficult for Zhang Daniu to catch him. Therefore, Zhang Daniu had a plan in mind. He deliberately revealed a flaw to lure Dongfang Yi into falling for his trick and seized the opportunity to catch him. This was the fighting technique that Zhang Daniu had learned from Lei Hu these few days. However, even Lei Hu did not expect Zhang Daniu to be able to learn and use it like this. In the arena, Zhang Daniu tightly grabbed Dongfang Yi's wrist to prevent him from escaping. Dongfang Yi, who understood what was going on, was also shocked. He did not expect that he would be fooled by this seemingly stupid and blunt man. However, now wasn't the time to think about these things. Dongfang Yi knew that he didn't have the same physique as Zhang Daniu. If he was punched directly by Zhang Daniu, he definitely wouldn't be able to take it. Therefore, Dongfang Yi hurriedly raised his other hand and struck Zhang Daniu's body in the shape of a snake's head. It was not easy for Zhang Daniu to catch this loach-like enemy. How could he let go? He did not care about Dongfang Yi's attacks that had limited damage to him. He grabbed his wrist tightly and swung it like he was throwing a blanket. Dongfang Yi was instantly thrown up by Zhang Daniu. His right arm, which was grabbed by Zhang Daniu, let out a bone-chilling sound. The bones in his arm were broken by Zhang Daniu just like that. However, Zhang Daniu didn't give up. He threw Dongfang Yi onto the ground. Bang! The huge impact caused Dongfang Yi to involuntarily cough out a mouthful of blood. He felt as if all his bones had been broken by Zhang Daniu. He raised his head and looked at Zhang Daniu. Dongfang Yi saw the ferocious smile on Zhang Daniu's face and his raised fist. No. He only had time to say one word before Zhang Daniu's fist smashed onto his chest like a pile driver. The ground beneath Dongfang Yi was immediately dented by Zhang Daniu's powerful force, and the wooden flooring was raised up high. Looking at Dongfang Yi again, there was a bowl-sized hole in his chest, but there was no blood coming out from the 7 holes. Outside, the lively scene was silent. The audience had never seen such a killing scene. However, those were not ordinary people after all. Soon, not only the people who had bet on Zhang Daniu, but also the other people in the audience started cheering. As for the boss behind Dongfang Yi, Li Xianlong, it was hard for him to maintain his smile at this moment. His face was ashen. He looked at Zhou Hao, who was still calm and composed, and his eyes were filled with extreme coldness. After that, Zhang Daniu successfully entered the list of participants for the 3rd round, although he suffered some minor injuries. However, the battle just now was undoubtedly a great training for him, and it had given him a rare battle experience. His kind personality was only limited to treating his own people. When facing enemies, he would not show mercy, especially after Lei Hu's brainwashing education of being kind to enemies is being cruel to oneself. After washing away the blood on his body and changing into clean clothes, Zhang Daniu returned to Zhou Hao and the others. Zhou Hao naturally praised Zhang Daniu, but Zhao Yuqin scolded him for luring the enemy, which made her worry for nothing. In front of Zhao Yuqin, this big sister, Zhang Daniu returned to being shy. He sat there with his head down and obediently accepted Zhao Yuqin's criticism. After Dongfang Yi was killed in front of everyone, Li Xianlong, who lost face and money, immediately left with a flick of his sleeves. He didn't even care about Dongfang Yi's corpse. Sir, congratulations on winning the bet. Excluding the bet, your bonus is 30 million US dollars. We've already saved this bonus into your account. You can withdraw it anytime you want. The female attendant just came here again. She returned Zhou Hao's credit card to him. There was also a bank card, which turned out to be Citibank's foreign bank account. Zhao Yuqin took the bank card and looked at it carefully. She said in surprise, "It really is a Citibank card. TSK, that's amazing." She just said that she could withdraw the money at any time, which meant that the money was all white. She could actually use the Citibank to trade in their peripheral gambling. It was really amazing. Zhou Hao deeply agreed with Zhao Yuqin's words. For many criminal groups, the most troublesome thing was not how to earn money, but how to turn the money they earned back into legal and clean property. Generally speaking, the money used in illegal casinos was traditionally black money, especially large amounts of money. It had to be washed clean before it could be used. But this Underworld King Cup had completed this procedure for the guests and paid the clean money to the guests who had won the money. Just based on this point, the organizer of the Underworld King Cup was not simple. With an aircraft carrier like Citibank, money laundering would become a very easy digital game. The difficult part was how to get the Citibank to help them complete the laundering. Zhou Hao estimated that the Citibank was not the only bank laundering money for the Underworld King Cup. He even suspected that the Underworld King Cup might have been created by the joint efforts of several powerful international banks. Also, according to what Lei Hu said, the competition council of this competition venue would broadcast live around the world through satellite transmission, so the people watching the competition and participating in the betting were not just these people. They were facing the underground world around the world. Zhou Hao handed the bank card to Zhang Daniyu and said with a smile, "Here, this is the competition that you have worked hard to win. I will give you the money that you have won, but you can win the competition, and Lei Hu also has some credit. Remember to give him some." Zhang Daniyu did not reject it. He happily put away the bank card and said with a smile, "Boss, don't worry. I will share the money with Brother Hu. Anyway, there is so much money. My mom and I will not be able to use it all." At this moment, Zhou Hao was considering whether he should transfer part of the money from the galaxy to participate in the gambling of the Underworld King Cup. With his extraordinary intuition, Zhou Hao was confident that he could accurately predict the outcome of each match. But thinking about it, he gave up again. If the profit was too small, he would not be interested. But if he won too much money, it would definitely attract the attention of the organizer of the Underworld King Cup. The organizers of the Underworld King Cup were likely from one or more countries. This power was too frightening. If they were targeted, it would truly be causing trouble. Zhou Hao did not dare to do so. Compared to the exciting match between Zhang Daniyu and Dongfang Yi, the following match was very boring. Although the contestants who could advance to the second round were all rare experts, in Zhou Hao's eyes, they were just putting on airs, especially those who came from the United States. They used boxing and wrestling skills. Although they were combined with kung fu, Thai boxing, karate, taekwondo, and other fighting skills, these so-called fighting skills were more than enough to deal with ordinary people and were very powerful. However, when they met a true martial arts expert, especially an expert like China who had practiced the Qigong, it could be said that they could not even withstand a single blow. Lei Hu also said, in those movies, tall Western boxers often beat up the weak and weak Chinaman until he could not get up. They see Western boxers as the greatest enemy of China's martial arts. In fact, this concept is very wrong. Those Western boxers are not on the same level as those who are truly skilled in martial arts. The world champion of a boxing match was far from being a match for a regular soldier in actual combat. Any soldier in the Green Beret could easily kill a boxing champion. As for the members of the Green Beret, they don't have any advantages when facing our special forces. We special forces soldiers, when facing those experts from the internal Qigong, even if we have guns in our hands, we can only be slaughtered. He sighed. In terms of martial arts, our China is the strongest in the world, but in terms of the physical fitness of the whole country, we can't compare to the West. Moreover, it's impossible for the entire nation to learn the internal Qigong. On one hand, it's the sects that have their own martial arts. Their martial arts are not passed down to their disciples. On the other hand, as the saying goes, heroes are banned by martial arts. The country will not allow the entire nation to cultivate their martial arts, just like how the government will not remove the control of firearms. He looked at Lei Hu, who had a sentimental look on his face. Zhou Hao patted him on the shoulder as a sign of comfort. At this moment, he saw the Indian go on stage. The opponent of the Indian was a Japanese in a samurai uniform. From the host's introduction, Zhou Hao knew that the Indian's name was Mohandas. It represented a wealthy and powerful family in India, Ambani. The Japanese name was Watanabe Fei Fei, and he represented one of the most powerful gangs in Japan, the Paddy River Association. Zhou Hao could tell at a glance that Du Bianfei's cultivation was very high. He was on par with Jinguki Ishiro, who was known as one of the three great experts in Japan. Of course, compared to a real supreme expert like the windy demon Otaro, the so-called three great experts of Japan were nothing more than a mob. Zhou Hao's inner energy was already very strong. After his battle with Taro in Indonesia, his understanding of martial arts had improved by leaps and bounds. With Zhou Hao's current level of martial arts, he could roughly deduce his skills just by looking at the flow of his aura. However, Zhou Hao actually could not see the depths of that Indian called Mohandas. That was because Mohandas looked like an ordinary person who did not know martial arts. There was nothing extraordinary about him. However, since he was able to break through the first round and arrive here, it meant that he was not weak. Moreover, the odds of the competition could also be estimated by guessing the strength of the contestants. However, in this competition, the odds of the side-flying support were 1-4, while Mohandas's odds were only 1-5. In other words, Mohandas was the most popular person in this competition. Boss, that little Japanese doesn't look special. I don't think he's a match for the Indian, Lehu said. Zhang Daniu, who was standing beside him, disagreed. Brother Hu, can't you tell? That Japanese man wasn't weak either. He is much stronger than Dongfang Yi. On the contrary, that Indian looks like it doesn't know martial arts. Zhang Daniu's inner sect cultivation was also very deep, so he could vaguely see the situation between the two of them. Zhou Hao did not express any opinion. He just looked at the two of them in silence. Zhao Yuqin, who was beside him, introduced the family that Mohandas represented. The Abeni family is the richest family in India. Their businesses are all over the various industries in India. Almost all the members of the board of directors are on the list of the richest people in Forbes. Moreover, they have a very close relationship with the political and military circles in India. There is a saying in India that is very clear about the power of the Ambani's family. In order to succeed in the position of president, you must first get an election from him. After Zhao Yuqin's explanation, Zhou Hao nodded. He also understood the influence of the Ambani family in India. As one of the four ancient civilizations, India's history of development was not shorter than China's, and it was similarly invaded by powerful forces in recent times. It was even completely colonized. However, in these few decades, India's development was also very fast. Many scientists predicted that in the near future, the international community would form a six extremes world. 6 countries with powerful economic and military power would control the development of the entire world. China and India were one of the polar opposites. According to Zhao Yuqin's introduction, the economic strength of the Ambani family was not inferior to the Li family of Singapore. The Indian that Zhou Hao saw earlier should be a member of the Ambani family. And to be able to represent the Ambani family in the battle, Mohandas was obviously very powerful. Just like before every match began, there would be specialized personnel asking the audience if they wanted to place their bets. When the female attendant asked Zhou Hao and the others, Zhao Yuqin asked Zhou Hao with interest, "Which one do you think will win?" "That Mohandas," Zhou Hao said without hesitation and gave his credit card to the attendant, also betting $10 million. After registering the betting information, the competition began very quickly. That Watanabe flying helper was indeed very strong. He had a deep understanding of fist techniques and could be considered a master of fist techniques. Zhou Hao saw that the fist technique was firm and powerful, and its moves were exquisite. It was also different from Dongfang Yi's evil snake fist. It was tricky and ruthless. Although his strength was not as good as Zhang Daniu's, the fist technique he used to help him cross the border was also a profound skill. Zhou Hao's previous guess was correct. The strength of the waterside flying technique was comparable to Jinguki Ushiro's. It was obvious that it was much stronger than the strength of the other contestants. However, with the Du Bian flying helper's strength, in nearly 10 minutes since the start of the competition, his fist could not even touch Mohandas's hair. Whenever his powerful fist was about to hit Mohandas, Mohandas would always dodge it in time and appear very calm. Zhou Hao slightly narrowed his eyes and carefully observed Mohandas's every movement. He discovered that when Mohandas did not move, he was like an ordinary person who did not know martial arts. However, every time he was hit by the side flight assistants, Mohandas's strength would burst out in an instant. His body's speed would also increase abruptly, avoiding the side-crossing assistance attack. That Mohandis's skill is very strange, Zhou Hao said with a frown. When Mohandis didn't move, even he couldn't sense his qi. However, when he was attacked, he could instantly unleash a powerful force. Zhou Hao thought to himself, if this Mohandis was an assassin, the danger he would face would be unimaginable. Because before he launched his killing move, even Supreme Expert couldn't sense his qi and would only treat him as an ordinary person. Therefore, it was hard to guard against him when he launched his attack. Although the strength unleashed by Mohandis was far inferior to Supreme Experts, Zhou Hao still had a strong sense of wariness towards this person. At this moment, Zhou Hao finally saw Mohandis switching from defense to attack. In the arena, Mohandis simply threw a punch at the side of the ferry. His speed was not considered fast, just like an ordinary person. Facing such an attack, the Watanabe helmsman could easily dodge it. He stood on his tiptoes and retreated a few meters. However, just as everyone thought that Du Bian had dodged Mohandis's attack, Du Bian seemed to have suffered an invisible attack. He flew back more than 10 meters, and a trace of blood leaked from the corner of his mouth. No one knew why, because Mohandis clearly didn't encounter the Crossing Guardian. How did the Crossing Guardian get attacked? What's going on? Lei Hu also felt puzzled. Zhou Hao looked at Zhang Daniu. Daniu, did you see it just now? Zhang Daniu's expression was solemn as he slowly shook his head. I can't see it. His expression was filled with shame. Zhou Hao sighed slightly. Zhao Yuqin grabbed his arm and asked, Xiao Hao, do you know what happened? Mohandis's martial arts is really strange. Zhou Hao frowned deeply. He indeed knew the truth. He had seen it just now. It was flying at the side of the ferry to help retreat, leaving Mohandis's attack range. Even Zhou Hao thought that Mohandis wouldn't be able to reach him if he stayed still. However, Mohandis just stood there and didn't move. His right hand suddenly stretched out. It was like rubber rope that stretched out for more than 2 meters. His fist also hit Du Bianfei's chest and injured him. After the successful attack, Mohandis's right arm instantly returned to its original state. The whole process of extending and shortening could only be a percentage, or even 1,000th of a second short. It surpassed the speed at which normal people's eyes could capture the scenery. Therefore, the audience outside the arena could not see Mohandis's movements at all. Zhou Hao's vision was enough to capture the trajectory of the bullet, so Mohandis's movements naturally could not escape his eyes. But what made Zhou Hao unable to believe was that Mohandis's right hand had actually grown longer, and not some kind of illusion. This was just like the yoga expert in the classic video game Street Conqueror, whose hands and feet could be extended to non-human length. Zhou Hao had always thought that it was just a setting in the game. He had never thought that there would be such a strange martial art in real life. The match between Mohandis and Du Bianfei was even more exciting than the match between Zhang Daniu and Dongfang Yi. Because Mohandis and Du Bianfei were both rare experts, the intense battle had broadened the horizons of the audience. However, just as Zhou Hao had expected, the Du Bianfei was defeated by Mohandis in the end. Mohandis's martial arts was too strange. Even though his hands and feet had been restrained by Du Bianfei, his limbs could be twisted in an unimaginable way, as if his bones were made of rubber. Moreover, he extended his arms and legs from time to time, increasing the range of his attacks, making it impossible for Du Bianfei to dodge. Fortunately, Mohandis did not kill Watanabe. Perhaps it was because the Ambony family did not want to have an irreparable grudge with the Japanese Rice Creek. After watching this match, Zhou Hao said, if Danyo wants to win the Underworld King Cup, that Mohandis will be the biggest obstacle. 1. During the process of watching the match, Zhou Hao suppressed Mohandis's strength and compared it with his own. He imagined what he would do if he faced Mohandis. With his strength, Zhou Hao was confident enough to defeat Mohandis, but he still needed to put in a lot of effort. When Zhang Daniu heard Zhou Hao say that Mohandis was his biggest enemy in this competition, not only did he not feel nervous or afraid, his face even revealed an excited expression. Zhou Hao knew that to Zhang Daniu, the greatest joy was to be able to spar with an expert. In fact, it was the same for him. The previous battle with Taro Fengimo was a close shave, even though it was a close shave. However, Zhou Hao was still excited in his heart. He was also looking forward to having this opportunity again, so that he could comprehend a higher realm of martial arts. Once upon a time, Zhou Hao had even imagined that the White Tiger 5 King Sword he had comprehended in his battle with the Windy Demon Little Taro. Would he be able to defeat the Chief Head's Snow Seeker Plum Sword? Or could he suppress the Tang Sect's Li Tsongyun's Flaming Ice Divine technique? The second round of the Underworld King Cup still had 2 days left, but Zhou Hao no longer had much interest in the remaining matches. If nothing unexpected happened, Zhang Daniu and Mohandas would both break through to the semifinals of the third round and meet in the final round to compete for the championship. As a developed city along the southeast coast, Xiamen is flourishing enough, but there are not many places worth visiting. Fortunately, Xiamen was adjacent to the ocean. So after Zhou Hao and Zhao Yuqin visited all the places worth visiting in Xiamen, they took a boat out to sea. Bathing in the cool sea breeze that carried a strong fishy smell, they would occasionally go to the boats of the fishermen and taste the authentic dishes of the fishermen. Zhang Daniu and Lei Hu were not as interested as Zhou Hao and the others. They had been training and participating in competitions for the past few days. Just as Zhou Hao had expected, Zhang Daniu broke through the third round of eliminations and entered the top 4 in the fourth round. At the same time, he advanced to the top 4. There was also that Indian expert, Mohandas. In a series of matches, Zhang Daniu's combat experience was getting richer and richer. Lei Hu also followed Zhou Hao's instructions. Every match, Zhang Daniu would place a huge bet on him, at least 10 to 20 million USD, and at most 50 to 60 million USD. With Zhou Hao as the backing of the money, Lei Hu also enjoyed the taste of being a rich man for a while. However, as the competition continued, the odds of Zhang Daniu, who had never lost before, continued to drop. Today was the fourth round of the Underworld King Cup. As long as he broke through this round, he would be able to enter the finals and compete for the honor of the champion. He would also obtain a huge reward of 100 million US dollars. Zhang Daniu's opponent was an Arab man called Isagadal, representing an armed organization in the Middle East called Crimson Sand. This Isagadal not only had his head wrapped, but he also wore a face cloth that only revealed his eyes. He looked very mysterious. This Ithagata was very tall, and was actually half a head taller than Zhang Daniu. What was even more frightening was that this person's agility was completely different from his body size. He was a little stronger than Dongfang Yi from before, and the strength in his hands was also shockingly great. He used a kind of powerful technique similar to the secret sect palm seal. His moves clearly had traces of the Damascus sword blade technique. It was very ruthless, so it posed a huge threat to Zhang Daniu. One had to say, this Ithagata was an expert on the same level as Zhang Daniu. This shocked Zhou Hao and Lei Hu, who had come to watch the battle. They had never seen anyone outside of Asia who could practice internal techniques. The inner force skills Zhou Hao had seen were either from China or from Japan. He had never seen anyone else who could cultivate inner force skills. This could be due to different types of people having different meridians. Just as Lei Hu had said, in ordinary people, white and black people from the West were generally stronger than Asian people. However, in the face of inner force experts, those strong Westerners were no different from 3-year-old children. However, the secret sect's great palm that Ithagdar was using now clearly required a deep inner force to activate. This inner energy technique is indeed extensive and profound. There are still many secrets that we don't know about. Zhou Hao sighed. Lei Hu, however, was not as calm as Zhou Hao. He looked at Zhang Daniu and Ithagata, who were fighting equally fiercely on the battlefield. Lei Hu said anxiously, "Boss, that Arab is not weaker than the Big Bull. Can the Big Bull win this match?" The reason why he was so nervous was not because Lei Hu had invested a huge sum of money. It was because this Underworld King Cup was called the Underground Boxing Match. In fact, it was actually a martial arts competition between all the countries in the world, and Zhang Daniu was not sent by the authorities of China. However, he had already represented the China side. If he lost, it would involve the honor of the country and its people. For someone like Lei Hu who had retired from the army, there was nothing more important than the honor of their nation. Zhou Hao took the sprite from Zhao Yuqin, glanced at Lei Hu and said, "Don't worry, there is no problem with Daniel. This competition is a very rare opportunity for him to train." His voice was soon drowned in the cheers. The audience was much more excited than the previous matches. One reason was because of the importance of the top 4 matches. On the other hand, it was also because of Zhang Daniu and Ithagata's intense battle. It could be said to be the most classic battle in the history of the Underworld King Cup. In the past few rounds of competition, the outcome would usually be decided in half an hour. But now, after 2 whole hours, Zhang Daniu and Isagadal still did not have a clear winner. The two of them stood on both sides of the arena. Their breathing was much heavier than in the beginning of the match. The clothes on their upper bodies had long been torn into pieces, and their faces and bodies were also stained with a lot of blood. The crazy shouts and curses of the audience outside seemed to be ethereal to the two of them. Other than their own heartbeats and each other's panting, they could not hear anything else. In Zhang Daniu's opinion, this Ithagata was the strongest opponent he had ever met besides Zhou Hao. His strength wasn't any weaker than Zhang Daniu's. Up until now, both of them had lost more than half of their strength. Ithagata-Geto's 2 palms were placed flat on his waist. At the same time, he lowered his horse and leaned forward. Zhang Dania's expression changed, because he knew this was the starting stance of Ithagata-Geto's big move. Ithagata-Geto had used it twice before. When he used that move, it was like 2 Damascus knives fell from the sky. The power was very terrifying. The 2 deep pits on the ground that were almost 10 meters long and the deep marks on the nano-carbon glass that was 10 times tougher than bulletproof glass were made by Isagadol's move. At that time, Zhang Daniu used the most powerful move of the Divine Ox Punch, 9 Bulls Kowtow, to barely block Ithagdar's move. Now, Zhang Daniu knew that Ithagata had used his ultimate move the most. This time, it would be the final battle between the two of them.